Good evening, residents of Litchfield, and welcome to the June 5th, 2019 school board meeting. Begin with the Pledge of Allegiance. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Any revisions this evening?
We do not.
Summary of non-public actions from May 22nd, 2019. Saracen made a motion to grant the requested tuition waiver to attend CHS for 4 years. Mr. Burke second, motion failed, 2-0. Ms. Saracen made a motion to approve the non-public minutes from May 8th, 2019. Mrs. Hirschberger second, motion carried, 5-0. That brings us to presentations and recognitions.
Okay, so the presentations we have tonight are the E3 awards, and you have those, correct? Yep. So maybe the principals could just give us a quick intro of the person that is retiring, because that's who we're recognizing tonight, our 3 retirees. So 4, I'm sorry, there are 4. And so I see 1, 2 here. So why don't we start with Doris Cody from GMS. Principal Thompson, you want to give us a quick intro of Doris?
Okay, cut it way down, I'll be really quick. And I know Doris will appreciate that as well. Okay, Doris is an outstanding candidate for the E3 award. She's retiring after giving 32 years of outstanding service to the GMS and the district, and a total of 38 years as a district. Doris taught for 6 years in parochial schools, came to GMS as a grade 1-2 teacher in 1978, and has worked in grade 2 all that time since. She has always been continually active in her professional community. Even in college, she was the treasurer for her sophomore class, the vice president of her senior class, member of the education club, HOMAC Club, the Student Services Volunteer Organization, and the Orientation Committee. At GMS, she presented plays and produced Thanksgiving feasts with her students, and served for many years on multiple curriculum and program committees. She served on negotiations teams multiple times in her 32 years. In her very first year on the job, she began considering how to meet the needs of all students by providing enrichment activities to her students. She is deeply committed to students, parents, colleagues. She's served as the grade level rep for the Sunshine Fund, a voluntary committee designed to acknowledge and celebrate the events and lives of staff members. She served on the school social committee and has hosted staff events as well. Doris has been a wonderful teacher, mentor to students and teachers alike, and friend to all, and she will be sorely missed by all of us. We wish her only the best as she moves into retirement.
Thank you. Wait, we got a picture?
Yeah.
Hold on.
We'll get a picture.
These chairs are low. This is my job.
Doing?
This is your job. This is officially my
I
job.
shrink?
Are they different?
I don't know.
Great. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thank you. We'll see it on the website.
Around picture.
Josh, you want to get a picture too?
And I see Mary Lou Saxton. Got that too?
So Mary Lou has also had a very long and distinguished career in education. She has taught students with disabilities for 36 years, the last 17 at GMS. Mary Lou, between 1981 and 2002, she was a special ed teacher for United Cerebral Palsy in Swarthmore, Pennsylvania, Jordan Bank Elementary School in Oxford, Pennsylvania, and Floyd Elementary in Derry. Since 2002, she's been a special ed teacher at GMS. She served on multiple committees and work groups for the district also, covering such things as transition planning, report cards, teacher evaluation, behavior support, city teams, and emergency response planning. She's been a teacher mentor to help orient new teachers to the school and the profession. 3 years ago, she was co-founder of a GMS professional learning community focused on Google Classroom and other technology-based teaching tools with GMS. She also, I hate to give this away, but she is Stripes, our school mascot. If it's only her, we'll have to have her come back. So now we all know. She also dresses up for many other things to help with kids, to delight and instruct. She's been a Christmas elf, an M&M for Twin Day, and a clown. Her dedication to students has been complete and unflagging. She was honored with the VFW Loyalty Award in 2006. And again, we will miss her sorely, and we wish her just the best in retirement.
Excellent. Congratulations.
You should have that in the background.
Need a clock.
I know.
So creepy. Oh my God. When they unveiled them at night, because I'm on that committee.
All right, and next we have Catherine McPhee from LMS.
Okay, so congratulations, Kathy. Kathy earned her bachelor's degree at Sam Houston State University in Huntsville, Texas. She began her career teaching grades 5 and 6 at Creighton Intermediate in Conroe, Texas. And for 32 years, Kathy McPhee has been bringing incredible passion for teaching to school with her every day here in Litchfield. Her infectious laugh and strong emotion and conviction for what she believes in has guided her to become a leader within the walls of our school for many years. I've always appreciated Kathy's way of stating things the way they are, the way they should be, as she always has a vision. There is no sugarcoating with Kathy. As you get to know Miss McPhee, you quickly realize she brings incredible wisdom to her work and people listen to her. To be a middle school educator, you have to have a high level of judgment, common sense, and the ability to relate to students of this age. And Kathy is a communicator. If you've ever had the pleasure of watching Kathy teach, you know that she has an exceptional talent of telling stories. In her classroom, the history of our great nation comes to life as Kathy delivers one magical lesson after another over the course of 9 months, culminating in our favorite 4-day, all expenses paid vacation with over 110 of our best friends. That's right, the DC trip. Every year, Kathy has been a chaperone for many of those trips. We have many fond memories, and then we have some other memories. Student that vomited on the bus right near Kathy. I won't get into all the details of that, but thank you, Kathy, for your volunteering of many of those trips. Her first principal described Kathy this way: from the very beginning, I could tell she would be an outstanding teacher. Even her peers could not believe it was her first year to teach. She will be an asset to any staff. That was in 1986. In Kathy's 32 years in Litchfield, to say she has been an asset to our district is a vast understatement, and not just in the classroom. In addition to being an outstanding teacher, Kathy is always active in committee work in both the district and at LMS, more recently serving as our PBIS coach and an instrumental member of our PBIS team. Above all is Kathy's passion to just teach, which she does in exactly the outstanding manner that was advertised 25 years ago. Thank you, Kathy, for making our school a terrific place to learn for our students and for making an unforgettable mark on the thousands of students who cross through your classroom and on us, your colleagues, who will miss you dearly. Congratulations.
So nice.
I'm a right spot. Thank you.
Congratulations.
Oh, nice. Thank you. All right, get my good side.
Here's the leg out,
You know,
lean in the back. Here we go.
you're supposed to do.
That's what my niece told me. Perfect. That's the one I said.
Thank you, everybody.
There's a way to do it, apparently. Did you know that? You lean in the back.
Our fourth person recognized tonight is our administrative assistant at the middle school, Leslie Pierce.
So since LMS opened in the late 80s, Leslie Pierce has been one of the faces of our office. And for those who have been in the Litchfield community for a number of years, It's hard to imagine our school without Mrs. Pierce. To sum Leslie Pierce up, she gets things done, and boy, does she care. For over 30 years, Mrs. Pierce has poured her heart and soul into our school, our staff, and our community. Her kindness, transparency, incredible ability to listen, and superior work ethic will be remembered at LMS forever. Leslie graduated from the Catherine Gibbs School in Boston, Massachusetts in 1974. In her first application, there was a line asked minimum hourly wage expected. Leslie entered $4. If you spend any significant amount of time with Leslie, you will soon realize that she truly cares about people and wants the best for them. Leslie pays close attention to our family at LMS, keeping a keen eye on each staff member. As life goes, when events happen, Leslie is sensitive, empathetic, and thoughtful in making sure to recognize them. Whether it is the annual recognition of Teacher Appreciation Day, when she runs around buying different recognitions, or just those little cards that she sends with thoughts of well-wishing to our staff. Leslie is also an incredible listener. Over the course of my 20 years of working with Leslie, I have watched many a staff member, parent, or community member share with Leslie as she listens and takes in their life. One of Leslie's references, a former assistant superintendent, said, Leslie's secretarial skills can only be described as outstanding. Her typing accuracy and speed were superior. Her dictaphone skills were excellent, and her filing, phone, and other general office skills were of the highest quality. In addition, I would classify Mrs. Pierce as a self-starter. As we enter the computer age, she was one of the first to enthusiastically embrace the computer, participating in in-service training activities, and spent her own personal time mastering various software programs. And I've seen it myself over the years as we've brought in different programs, new technologies. Leslie is a learner and learns things very quickly. She also oversees many of our books around the budget in the office, and is also the supply genie at LMS. Seems like as the summer hits overnight, the almost tooth fairy-like presence of Leslie through the walls of the middle school, supplies magically appear on teachers' desks, and Leslie oversees all of that. She also, as I said, really truly cares for our staff. So congratulations, Leslie. This is the end of an era in the LMS office. We will always look back on Mrs. Pierce's mark on our office, and thank you for all of your work for our district over the past 30 years.
I would just like to take an extra moment and just again extend a big heart thank you from the entire board. I think between the four of you, we have about 100 some odd years of service. I say, well, one of you had more. I mean, it's extraordinary that in this community we have teachers and staff that stick around for this length of time. And I think it speaks volumes of the type of district we are. And again, I congratulate all four of you, and I wish you the best in your retirement or whatever you do, and enjoy. And thank you very much for your service.
Thank you. And thank you for this. This is very thoughtful and means a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, enjoy your evening.
Thank you.
Oh, you can stay.
Lipstick. I probably have to.
Correspondence.
No correspondence for the board this week.
That'll bring us to the superintendent comments.
Okay, so the first item that I'm bringing to the board for consideration is a memo of understanding with our Litchfield Police Department. I mentioned this at the last meeting, that it was something we had been working on. Essentially, the police department has asked us for the ability in a real emergency situation to be able to use all the tools that are available to figure out what might be happening inside one of our schools. And one of those tools would be the video surveillance system. I think that what we've tried to do with this memo of understanding is to strike a balance between assisting the police in a dire emergency, but also make sure that we maintain complete privacy for our students and that this not be a tool that gets overused. So if you read the memo through, you'll see that we've put safeguards in there to really point that this is it's a privilege, it's a trust factor that we are willing to make this available to the dispatcher so that if there were to be something awful happening inside one of our buildings, any information that they're able to get to assist the officer and officers who are responding would be a plus, because unfortunately we open the news, however we access the news these days, and it just seems to be incident after incident where police departments and first responders are rushing into a building to try to neutralize the situation in order to protect life and limb. And the way we have structured this is that it's something that if this is another tool that would assist them to do that more effectively, then we think it's worthwhile. You'll see that there are all sorts of measures in there to make sure that it's not something that is used outside of that scope. The dispatcher, which I think is sitting behind the glass right outside here, that would be the individual who would be able to log in and to view live what's happening in the building and get information to the officers who are responding and rushing in. So it's not something that somebody's going to pull up in a car and log in on a computer screen from the parking lot. There's not time for that. They need to be responding, but somebody who is here and can then access that and relay good information. You know, unfortunately, most of these situations that we hear about last somewhere between, you know, I think the average time is like a 4-minute start to end. So it's seconds count in these sort of situations. And if this is a tool that we can extend, we think it's probably worth shaving some of those seconds if that's what it does. So. And we have run this by our legal department. So this has been vetted by our attorneys. We've run it by our emergency planning team. So it's not something that we're entering into lightly, but we just think that this is worth the board considering and thinking about it. And if there are more safeguards that you want to see in it, by all means, get us that feedback. But we've talked to our IT people about it. And so we think that we can do this and have the right safeguards put in place.
So I take it IT would be alerted to any time it's been activated by the police department?
So there would be a logger on the system. So anytime the PD logged in, it would leave a trail, it would leave a mark. In the memo, it says that if they're going to do training, because I would anticipate that there would be routine opportunities where they would be doing training and just making sure that they know how to access it, staying fresh with it. We simply ask that they notify us of that in advance so that we understand, okay, there'll be a training next Thursday. So we would expect that the log would show that they accessed it, right? So it would be something communicated to us in advance and not, you know, it's not a situation where somebody just decides some afternoon to see if they can log in, right? It would be a purposeful, trained announcement to us in advance.
And the SRO right now doesn't have access to this?
The SRO has access through the school district issued laptop. So the SRO in the building does not have a police department laptop. It's a school laptop, and then the software is on it. So the SRO does have access to it. But they, again, are invited to view the video by our administrative team. It's something that we could revoke at any time. We could take that computer back if there were to be a violation. There never has been, because it's we have high confidence and trust in our officers who are there. So it's worked out very well. But yes, the SRO does have access.
I like the fact that the police department has to create their own policy around this as well. It's a good safeguard.
And that was, again, the value of running this by legal, because we hadn't thought of that. And our attorney said that by entering into this, the police will agree to develop their own internal policy. So, you know, the MOU is on the school side, talks about our ability to take it away if it were to be violated. But I think it's really important the police have internal procedures they develop, and they're compelled to do it by this.
And when will we have that developed?
Well, as soon as we execute the MOU, I'm sure they would begin the process. I don't honestly know how the police policies are developed. I don't know if they're agreed to by the select board or if the chief can enact policies. I'm not sure, but if we were to agree to this and execute it, we would be looking at a startup for the beginning of school in the fall, and I'm sure that would give plenty of time for them to.
Have you run this by the police chief already? And is this something that he feels comfortable with on his end as well?
He does. So Chief O'Brien has been a regular participant in the emergency management meetings that we hold. It was a request from the chief, and I then talked about the parameters, and so we worked out this memo. It's been many months in the development, but he is comfortable that this will give them the latitude that they're looking for to help in those seconds, and it still gives us safeguards. He understands why those safeguards need to be in place.
Do you need a vote on this?
I'm sorry?
Do you need a vote on this? Or?
I think we need a vote because in this day and age with student privacy and data privacy, I think it's really important that the board know that we're doing this. And I think having a vote of the board authorizing us to sign it would.
I'll make a motion to, would they say accept or accept the memorandum of understanding? That's what I'd say.
This would be a first read, right?
The first.
This is not policy.
What's that?
This is not policy. This is an MOU, so.
But
I second it.
I'm also comfortable if the board wants another meeting.
Yeah.
You know, it's perfectly okay to take time to think about this and to let us know at a future meeting. We still have plenty of time to have this in place for next year. Or if the board's ready to vote, that's okay too. It's the pleasure of the board.
You've talked about it before too, so you
All right,
feel
it seems
comfortable
pretty
with it.
straightforward.
Yeah.
So make a motion to accept the memorandum of understanding, remote access video surveillance on district property between the Litchfield School District and the Litchfield Police Department.
Second to second time.
Motion and second. Any more conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Abstain. 5-0.
Excellent. Thank you for that.
Do you want us to bring it back for a second vote or?
No.
Okay.
So,
All right, so the next topic on here is the high school parking and traffic flow. So we've had several conversations back and forth with the fire department. The concept that we had floated by was to put some short-term parking along the fence on the main driveway of the high school. The fire department has said that they're not comfortable with that. They feel that it would encroach too much into the fire lanes. So we're going to have to keep talking about it because we need to try to find some way to get a little bit more space in there. And we were really trying to accommodate visitors and especially the short term, the parent is coming in to drop something off or what have you. So I think it'll have to be an ongoing conversation because what seemed to be one solution is not going to work. And just in general, the administrative team has been pretty active out there in the afternoons, making sure that traffic is flowing a little bit better. Yesterday was anybody from the community knows that the Meet of Champions overwhelmed our one-person parking department. And so Vice Principal Perez was out there doing his absolute best with an onslaught of buses and cars and parents from other districts. And it really, it overwhelmed the situation. So that's not a norm. We won't take that as a norm, but.
Was that senior picture night too? Is that what I heard?
That was when Hawkmeyer Studios came in to present on senior photos. So we had a nice little turnout, about 20, 22 parents. So that was okay. But when I left to go to an appointment, came back, and when I came back at about a little after 6 o'clock, it was still jammed up and packed up and crazy out there. And when we finished the presentation about 7:30 or so, I went out and Jared was still out there with the discus. It was, we were overwhelmed, and what Jared was reported in terms of numbers to be expected was succeeded by 2.5 times probably what we anticipated.
Wow.
And there were certain instructions given in terms of when the buses should show up, and sort of, they showed up early, came in, blocked students in, and it was pretty challenging. Yeah, there were a lot of challenges besides parking and cars. You know, restroom facilities and those things were difficult too.
Can we at least consider, and I realize we have a lot of time before next year.
Yeah.
If our main purpose was to find more visitor parking, remove the student parking that's in the front and move that to the side, that's visitor parking after the SAU.
Get rid of that chunk of visitor, keep the SAU and then get rid of all those visitors on.
We could keep.
That's the way it used to be.
I don't know, there used to be, what I know is what I've seen since
It
I've
makes
come
more
here.
sense. when you
I mean,
have
I
visitor
think-
parking in the front.
If you look at the parking against the rail that faces the building, you could probably eliminate one section of that. Is that what you're talking about? And-
Yeah, to the left-hand side. If you're looking at the school, to the left-hand side.
Yeah, eliminate that whole section. Yeah, it's probably about 20, 25 cars. It wouldn't be
Not
that
many.
difficult to
You have
do
some
that.
that are reserved for
Office
SAU
staff.
at the office. I'm not sure who they're
Yeah.
for. Then
There's,
you have like student of the month, then you have visitor parking.
correct, and there's a 3 or 4 visitor parking spots.
Yes.
It would not be difficult to turn those.
I think that'd probably
into-
be, enough, just that section on the left-hand side.
Right, sure, that would not be difficult to do.
Because isn't there spots in the second row for the secretaries?
There are, yes, there are a couple of staff members who have a little bit of
I think if-
mobility
I think if you
problems.
do have that front area for staff or SAU, I mean, those could stay, but it's just the few that are numbered, like it starts at number 1. I'm not sure. what it goes
Bless
up
you.
to.
Yeah, absolutely, that shouldn't be a challenge at all.
I wouldn't think you have more than like a dozen visitors at any given time.
Probably not more than a handful, most
Right.
days, 2, 3, or 4, but every once in a while, you've got a number of people coming in for a
But
mi-
then you
a
find
meeting or
kids
whatnot.
parking in there and then it
Right, and
becomes
that's
an
that-
annoyance.
right. This would eliminate some of those challenges.
I know, okay.
Yes. Mike
Do they
Mike has
have
done that
stickers?
in a number of times, yeah.
All right, so the next are actually two kind of traditional motions that the board makes at this point in the year. And we've attached the motion that we've used in the past to the agenda. So the first is the authority to sign. And this really allows me and Corey to be able to sign contracts, grants, business forms, et cetera, on behalf of the board during the summer when it's harder to get folks in to get those executed. So
I'll make a motion to authorize superintendent and business admin to sign the Office of Business Management forms, all contracts and all grants on behalf of Litchfield School Board.
Second.
Further conversation? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
So then the second traditional motion is for the superintendent to be able to offer contracts to teachers. So when we get into hiring season and we're in a competitive environment with other districts that are trying to staff positions in their buildings, the ability for us to offer a contract to a teacher so that they can commit to us and we can commit to them versus waiting potentially 3 or 4 weeks for the next board meeting, where somebody could then go to another district. So this will help our ability to attract good candidates to our district. So,
Not losing.
Right.
Make a motion to grant the authority of the superintendent to offer contracts and new hires from June 20th, 2019 to September 3rd, 2019.
Second.
Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
That was hard.
thank you for that. The board had raised a question at the last meeting just regarding Washington DC chaperones. And so Principal Lecklider and I had a conversation. And so in general, there were some examples where, I want to make sure I get the grades right, but the 8th grade teacher may not have been able to chaperone and another teacher subbed in which case the teacher who stayed behind was then used to teach the classes. So it was sort of a swap off, right? So if somebody was not able to attend the trip, they taught the classes in the absence of the person who did attend. But for the most part, it was the 8th grade team that participated in it.
Yep.
And did you have any other comments from the DC trip? Because this is a big deal to send our entire 8th grade to.
So yeah, that was actually one of my 2 topics. So
So
Can
can I just stay on chaperones for a moment? Because
Yeah, and I don't want to give you a third, so no.
do you turn away people who volunteer to chaperone? I'm just curious.
people being outside of the staff,
Teachers,
we
yeah.
have to. Yeah,
Okay.
we
So
only
that's
have.
where- That's where one of my concerns comes in. is Mr. Gilmore. Because now who's teaching phys ed? When he's gone.
So we try to pull in the people that are back to sub. If we don't have enough, then we have to have a sub in there for that week.
Right, but if we have enough chaperones and we turn them away, why do we send another teacher?
You mean parent chaperones? Because we feel that having staff chaperones who know the kids is the ideal, and educators who are with the kids. He teaches 8th grade, second half of the year. He's with these kids. They're his students. So it makes sense that he's on the trip. He can go.
And are there any other
So-
educators aside from 8th grade and Mr. Gilmore that attend?
This year there was one in 6th grade, one of the ELA staff. But again, I mean, she knows the kids. She's had the kids. She's familiar with,
I understand that, but that was a concern that was raised, is we're losing teachers to go chaperone something where we can get chaperones to do it.
Yeah, I mean, we have a 10-to-1 ratio. So the tour company provides us with basically 10 free chaperones per one free chaperone for 10 kids. And the staff usually, like you say, is the 8th grade team. I feel like people who are, certified educators who work with kids, who know these kids, particularly these kids, is the ideal. It's not to say that a parent isn't qualified and able to help us out, but certainly they have more of a kind of a context to the whole thing than a parent. So the parents we bring are fantastic. We brought a number of parents this year. They're great. But I think, there's always sort of like, tell me what my role is, tell me so there's got to be a little bit more of a context provided for a parent who may or may not be, working with kids on a regular basis. And oftentimes they're not.
Right.
So it's just one of those things. It's just about who's the most comfortable with the kids that are going. And, a number of our 8th grade teachers have gone many times.
Yeah,
So
but I don't think anyone's questioning the 8th grade team. I mean, it makes sense. The 8th grade team should go. But it's when we go outside of the 8th grade team, now we have to find a sub for that person. And so
Yeah.
obviously that suffers a little bit. And then you have to find a sub for this person. So you have 2 educators that are going that aren't part of the 8th grade team that now we have to replace. But we could have replaced them with potential chaperones. And I understand that, maybe they don't go for free, but probably some would volunteer and even pay to go to the thing if they had to.
from a financial standpoint, I understand the point. Again, these are staff who know kids. They know these particular kids. Some of our kids have, a variety of needs that they need in school, never mind on a trip. So that context is really important. Like you say, it is a big deal going away for 4 days with 100 some odd students. So I think that if I've got and I can't tell you how much I appreciate the parents that volunteer, but if I've got a parent versus a staff member who knows the kids and knows the context, is trained as a certified educator, I think that certified educator is maybe a little more valuable to us on a 4-day, 10 hours away from home trip with a lot of moving parts. So, but I get it from the financial side of it. Yeah, it does involve sometimes. Now this year we had, as I said, we had a 6th grade teacher go on the trip, and her class was covered by one of the 8th grade teachers that couldn't go. But the phys ed class, that one we only had 2 back, and one of them has to do with the kids that are back from the trip. So.
You guys have anything? Next community forum. No one? School board comments. Well, I'll start, and it'll probably be one of your things on, now you can do something else, but I want to say congratulations to the girls softball team for winning Division III championship the other day. It was a much closer game than it was at the bottom of the second inning. When we were ahead 7-0.
Yeah.
And next thing you know, it was 7-5. But they pulled it out 8-6. I just want to say congratulations to the girls. And then I'll just talk about the high school girls too. We're going to play tomorrow. What, the semifinal
In Plymouth?
in Plymouth. And congratulations, they're having a great year also, and good luck to them.
Yeah, they went undefeated all season and had moved up from Division III to Division II, and so it really was a special win.
Yeah, you're gonna send a bunch of girls up to high school too. The high school's gonna be a force for the next few years in softball.
And it was the team that beat us last year in the playoffs,
Yeah.
so.
Extra sweet.
Yes. It was Wyndham. So it was sweet.
Again, congratulations to boys lacrosse. Unfortunately, they lost. Congratulations to baseball. They lost. But they all made the playoffs and did great.
Oh, I did have, I'm looking back at my calendar last week. I was like, I knew I attended something that I wanted to speak about. I went to the LMS, LMS sent 4 teams to the first robotics competition on Saturday, the 1st. And this was billed as kind of the rookie off season. So Mrs. Corbeil opened it up to 5th and 6th graders. And there were 2 7th graders who went in the fall but wanted another shot at some awards. So they came and they helped out. And it was just, as a parent, I was in awe of how well these kids performed under pressure, how they came together as teams and as a larger group. You know, we had I think we had the highest number of teams attending from one district. And it was like a sea of blue up in the bleachers, you know, with all our kids and parents. And our girls team won the Core Values Award they called it No Team Left Behind. They were rock stars and they rallied for every team they showed their support for every team that went. And it was just a great experience. There's a lot of camaraderie between the teams, kids meeting new kids and, you know, swapping swag and sharing ideas. And it was just a great experience. So I was really impressed with Mrs. Corbeil and Mrs. Chu, the 2 advisors. They had a rough year and they had a lot of challenges with these young kids coming up and starting from scratch with no background experience, some of them. And it was amazing how well these kids did, starting from nothing in January, basically. So it was really exciting to see. And I think a lot of them will continue on and do it next year and the year after. And the program is just growing astronomically at that level. So it's great. It's really good to see.
I might as well chime in now that Tara, Rob, Dr. Jetty, Ms. Woodman, and I went to the senior awards night. And I don't know if you all know this, I was a para with this group. It was our first group of one-on-one technology kids. And I've known those students since the day they walked into high school. And to listen to some of those kids who didn't mumble 2 words the whole freshman year to make eye contact, the self-confidence they exuded, it was amazing how much they've grown physically, intellectually. It was really amazing.
It's a great group of
It was
kids.
awesome.
Yeah, I was really impressed by a lot of what those students were doing. It
Mm-hmm.
was terrific. And you're right.
Just the self-confidence, the eye contact, the articulation of their voices. You don't hear that a lot. It's something you have to cultivate in a school atmosphere. I said, I haven't. It's true.
Yeah, they were outstanding.
It was awesome.
Some of them really surprised me in terms of who they were and how they speak and what they were like.
In their passions, you could tell.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't know what some of the kids were talking about when they were doing computer programs and stuff, but they were totally into it, knew what they were doing. I enjoyed it.
And I have one other one before I forget. There's just so many that happened this time of year. Like I
Yeah.
said, you have to go back to your calendar. to
Right.
look, but once again, congratulations, Mrs. LaBelle at the Great East Conference.
Oh, yeah.
I think they won gold.
Yes, they did.
Again, she does a fabulous job with that chorus. It's amazing. It's similar to Miss Light at the middle school. It seems like I'm always like at the middle school on the first day, and it's similar to like GMS. You walk in and all you hear is the noise, and you got to get out of there. By the end of the year, it's amazing how it all comes together. And chorus is the same way. I mean, I think I've been to each one of their performances this year, and each time you just see the progression and how much they advance, and they do. She does a fabulous job with them, and they do a great job. She's been doing it for so long, and I mean, her reputation is second to none. She did a great job. So congratulations.
And one more event. There was a social media presentation by the police department last week. Forgotten, but
maybe about 20 or 25 parents showed up. And I think the biggest takeaway for parents to understand is
What was it called? Predators in your phone or what was it? Doing something about social media, a playground for
predators.
predators. It was-
So the biggest takeaway is that online predators are much more prevalent than any of us really thought. And it does happen here in Litchfield. And there have been cases in Litchfield, and the best thing that parents can do just is to have open and honest communication with their kids and monitor what they're doing. It was kind of scary. I'll admit, and I check, but it was all the stories they showed were local stories, all from New Hampshire. So it's happening here. So
Yeah, yes.
but it was a rude awakening, and a really important. It's important for us to have these conversations.
We'll, at this point, move on to reports, and we'll start with curriculum.
Okay,
Minutes.
Yeah, no worries.
just kidding.
Every single time. Yeah. So we have minutes from May 22nd, 2019.
I just had one comment. There was let me look back at it again. There was during public comment, Marcia Finnegan spoke about the parking issue. It just says non-public, and we were in public when we discussed that. I just wanted to clarify that. So it's page 3 of 6 under H.
6.
Each community forum.
Yeah.
No, it says she made a comment in reference to the non-public session.
Oh. Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Never mind then. I
All right.
retract my correction.
I do have one thing. When we were talking about the buses, I think that there was a follow-up item that we were going to make sure that the cameras that are mounted to the outside of the bus will ensure the video can be used by police to ticket and prosecute those who pass school buses when stopped. And I don't think that was mentioned, and I feel like that's an important follow-up item.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second. I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all's in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstained. 5-0.
I'm sorry, who made the motion?
I made a motion.
Okay, thank you.
All right. Excuse me. I just want to highlight one thing on this month's curriculum report before getting into all of the rest of what we have going on today. And that really is our summer work. We're at a point where we have all types of summer PD lined up, and it's very exciting, from the Live to Learn Academy, which is really all solidified. We have sessions that have upwards of 15 to 20 adults in every session. So it's fantastic. Very excited about that. But we also have people coming in to do curriculum development, to work on senior project guidelines, to work on the writing of the male version of the RAD curriculum, things that we've talked about during the course of the year. So a lot going on outside of the district. We're sending, I believe, 2 teachers to AP training, 2 teachers to NGSX science training, as well as there's an Intel math training that some of our tutors are interested in going to, and we have secured 25 seats to the Competency Design Studio. So with it being cut back to 1 day this year, we have been able to double the number of people that we thought we would be able to take. So that's super exciting. And to piggyback off of that, looking at grading and reporting, One of the things that we had talked about hoping to accomplish by the end of this year was to revise the relearning plan. We were able to look at it at our last meeting. What we have currently in all three buildings and in draft form is very well aligned. But with the end of the year coming up and us wanting to get work study practices to be able to come forward to the board, the committee decided that we would wait until after the design studio. We have the second day. We are bringing everybody back that attends the design studio for a work session the following day to be able to debrief and talk about next steps. The majority of that team does come from our grading and reporting committee. So we are hoping that that will give us a good jumping off point with things such as the relearning plan. So now getting into the meat of what we've done this year, really. So I am bringing forward math curriculum K through 8, as well as a change to the grade 5 math program. So I'm not sure, I believe it's first read for the curriculum tonight. Okay. So I just want to highlight a few things on one of the documents so that we can take a look at the format and things of that nature. So I'm going to ask everybody to, you have the links there, correct?
Yes.
Let's go into kindergarten unit 1. That's counting in cardinality. I just want to highlight a few structural things that as you're looking through the documents, you may have questions on that I hope I can answer out in front. Our competencies, we have 2 competencies, K-12 for math. Really, it's the application of the content, the math content, and the ability to explain and justify the reasoning. So really looking at the skill of the math concept and then the ability to explain why. In all of the units K through 8, the system that we used was in part because we didn't have a whole lot of school time to be able to get this work done. So we had to rely a lot on outside of school. So one of the first things that I did once we created the competencies as a K-12 group and went over sort of this whole process, I asked all of the teachers to outline how they would want their units divided up. And from that, because we have grade level standards, K through 8, I was able to front load all of the standards into the documents. So all of the standards progress through the first 8 grade levels very clearly. They're taken right from there and then transferred into the skills. Some of the skill language was simplified, but all of the content standards for those units are also in this. You'll see a lot of similar language in the skills. So a couple other things that you'll see, the transfer, that really is how are they going to use the skills in a non-academic and non-school-based setting. Those will often be the same unit to unit, especially at the lower levels because they're very broad. They're transferable into the real world. The essential questions, and this I know has come up in the past, are essential questions. Some of them are, especially at the lower grades, yes or no questions, which is not ideal, but at the same time, in having a lot of discussion with the teachers that were working on this, what we reiterated was if you have a yes or no essential question, there has to be the discussion that goes along with it. And that discussion is really what's going to drive it. We should not have any units that have just one essential question that's a yes or no question. So they all have multiple. Take a look. The other piece that I just want to highlight, which you won't see in the K4 documents, at the very bottom, there is a box that says content area literacy standards, not applicable for kindergarten. In our grade 5 through 8 curriculum documents, you will see content literacy standards for, you'll see minimally 2 reading and 2 writing. They're taken from the literacy standards for science and technical subjects. And it really is our way of ensuring that as we are building lessons and building assessments, we are incorporating those literacy skills in all subject areas, math included. Okay, so there's a lot to digest with these documents. So I'm assuming there probably won't be a ton of questions first read, but are there any on that? Yeah.
The only question I had, Mary, is a simple question, or probably a stupid question. How come 5 and everything? I mean, was there, seems there's 5 units in everyone? Is that
So in most of your elementary, there's 5 strands,
okay.
which is why you'll see as you get into the older grades, they tend to break them up differently, more thematically. But because the structure of your elementary classroom and that tends to be, and then rather than teaching unit to unit to unit, it's more integrated throughout the course of the year. So there'll be a lot of recycling.
Question. Oh, you can go, Tara.
What kind of an opportunity did all math teachers have to weigh in on the change?
So when the writing was done by, we set up at the beginning of the year, Mr. Thompson with all of the teachers set up, there's a representative from each grade level on each of our content writing teams. So as we completed the writing, the communication to the elementary team specifically, it's not the same in middle school because there's just the one teacher, was to bring their work back, get feedback from their teams, and adjust their documents accordingly. So I was not present in those meetings, but that was a lot of the conversation that we had when we would have writing time this was the feedback from my team. So I'm going based on the assumption that this happened pretty regularly.
That was part of what they need to do.
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a curriculum question.
Yes.
I'm happy to see that handwriting without tears is back. Why did you decide to bring it back?
This was actually brought by our pre-K, one of our pre-K teachers.
Mm-hmm.
And she had some concerns with the level of language in the Zaner Bloser for the pre-K level. And she brought it to Devin and myself and looking at the level of language at that grade level versus the level of language in handwriting without tears, it was much more grade level appropriate. So I know Mr. Thompson had a whole lot of conversation with not only the pre-K group, but also the kindergarten group to make sure that we weren't going to teach something and then have to reteach it in kindergarten, but what is taught in pre-K is taught the same way.
So they don't use Zaner Bloser in
They
kindergarten?
do, but they don't, so the difference appears in lowercase letters, which was something that was like a revelation for me. I went, oh, they don't actually teach lowercase letters in 4-year-old preschool. They use all uppercase letters.
Makes sense.
And the formation is the same, whether they're using the same emoji or handwriting without tears.
Okay.
Another question. And since you're talking about assessment and grading, will this be the basis for assessment and grading?
So this right here in the UBD system, this is stage 1. During the course of the Live to Learn Academy, I will introduce to the math teachers that come, or any teacher. We have some people that were not on the math writing team that have signed up to come and learn about basically stage 2, the assessment planning, writing performance assessments, looking at looking at some of our programs like Big Ideas has some built-in performance assessments. So looking at those and how do they incorporate into what we have already. So that's the next step. That is the next phase.
And do you envision it eventually leading over to kind of mirroring the report cards also? Or?
Yes. I mean, that's the goal. That's the goal.
How about as far as high school math curriculum?
So high school math curriculum, as I said to you guys before, is took a little bit longer because of the fact that the standards are not laid out by grade level. They're laid out by strand, and those have to be integrated. It's coming very soon. It's almost done. The reality is that in order to get this takes a lot of formatting and a lot of work on my end to be able to get it forward. And I wanted to get K-8 brought forward And
We've been waiting a long time.
I know,
Yeah.
I know.
High
But
school.
the high school math
Yeah.
curriculum is, it's very, very close. I suspect that I know it will be done to come forward in the July meeting. Any questions, any other questions on the documents? The other piece to this is, we brought through to PERC, one of the things that I've heard quite a bit this year from our secondary people is how happy they are with the Big Ideas programming. And we have kind of the bubble in grade 5. And one of the changes to the programming was that Big Ideas came out with a grade 5 curriculum last year, a grade 5 program. And so we look to explore that. The real thinking being that by bringing our grade 5 teacher into the same programming that the other middle school teachers are using, we have a lot more opportunity for collaboration across all grades in that building with our math programming and our math instruction. So with the curriculum moving through, with us having that opportunity, we felt it was the right time to make that change. And like I said, it was supported at PERC, and I hope it will be supported by the board as well.
Thank you.
Okay. Do we have to vote? Oh, no, first read, right?
Yeah.
Sorry. Okay, just making sure there wasn't.
There's
So
a lot to digest.
I know.
I went through a bunch of them. It's like,
And I will say this, I have proofread all of these, but please, if there are typos or formatting errors, please let me know. The other thing that that I wanted to share with you guys tonight were our work study practice rubrics. This really was, hold on, let me take a step back. I want to thank all the teachers that put a ton of time and effort into getting these curriculum documents ready to go. It was a lot of time, a lot of stress. This is not easy work. But they jumped in both feet and really did a great job. So I want to publicly thank the teachers that did.
It's a big accomplishment for one school year.
Mm-hmm.
So thank you, and thanks to all the teams that collaborated on this. This is great.
The other thing being our work study practices. So I'll start with the thank you to our grading and reporting team. This, although we had something when I came in this year, our first meeting, it came out pretty loud and clear that people were not happy with what we had, in part because it was not usable, it was not connectable, it didn't make sense to many of our teachers in terms of how they connected it to what they're doing on a daily basis. So with a lot of work and a lot of conversation, what we did and what you have before you, and I probably should have labeled them by school. They're listed out for you guys, right? The actual documents don't have them. We have the descriptors at the top, the 4, 3, 2, and 1 are common across the board, as are the indicators with slight language variation are taken right from the state model work study practices. But the thing that we did that I think makes it really individual to each building and meaningful is we actually aligned it rather than just to the titles that the state uses. We connected them to things that we are using in each building. So at GMS, pause, they took those overarching categories that the state uses and fit those indicators into something that their staff and their students know very well. Same thing with the PBIS BEST for LMS and the respect, character, courage, and responsibility from the high school. So the goal with that really was to be able to make it more meaningful.
How lucky that every one of our schools has a four-letter acronym.
Trust me, it doesn't always work that way.
if not, we're going to change one of them.
Right, exactly.
I hate to bring it up. My only concern when I looked through them, and but I love them, that it's a way to keep them, is 3 of them kind of said the same thing. I think LMS was the one I was probably most concerned about. If you're grading kids on high quality assignments, you're getting a letter grade, a number grade for that. But it's saying you're rating them, like, which one am I in? CHS, completes high quality class and home assignments on time. To me, that almost should just be complete assignments on time, because aren't you grading them on the quality and the grade? And then LMS just says completes high quality assignments, doesn't say on time. And again, I almost, I could be wrong. It seems to me you're trying to assess here on their timeliness and responsibility, not necessarily because you're giving them a grade on the high quality. And I think GMS said the same as CHS, which was completes high quality work in a timely manner. It's a minor thing, but I just think you're grading them already on the quality of the work. This should be on the timeliness, as Bill talked about a few weeks ago. Do they do it on time or not? What's their responsibility level? Are you double hitting them on the quality of the work if you're grading them and then hitting them again if they continually turn it? Minor, these are great, but that would be my one minor question on it.
It's a good point. I would want to go back and look at what the state disclaimer said. But
I love the idea of the time. I love that.
Looking at that, though, I do think that the definition is quality work. You know, are you, even if the grade is reflected, are you turning in something that isn't your best?
I guess the way I'm looking at it, if you turn in something that's, that we all know, is a kid that stayed up till 10 o'clock doing it the night before it's due, his grade's going to be lower.
Right.
The timeliness is, to me, seems what's being graded. So it's a minor squabble, but that was the only thing. I think they're awesome otherwise.
Okay. Thank you.
Anything else, Samantha?
I think too, we talked about when we had the discussion about turning in assignments on time and the work study practices as a whole, about this is the desire to give these work study practices more teeth and to treat them, you know, on equal footing as the academic grades and rubric.
So
You know,
that's something that is going to have to go in through our discussion at grading and reporting as we move forward next year, because you're right, we've had some discussion about that in grading and reporting. How do we give it some teeth? How do we, you know, how can we make it so that it's not only meaningful, but it's valuable?
Right.
So that discussion and more clarification on that is forthcoming.
Thank you very much.
It's awesome.
Thanks.
And again, it's, like I said, thank you very much, but the work, it is a lot of work.
Amazing.
Tina said it's a lot to accomplish in 1 year. So,
And I'd just like to say, having had 2 kids ago, it's nice to see all 3 schools with similar documents with similar verbiage. Yeah, it's nice. I really appreciate that.
Make it easier for parents, for sure.
I'll bring us to EMS. Mr. Thompson.
All right, thank you. So just before our last board meeting, we had sent teams to the New Hampshire Forest Lego League Expo. I wanted to spend a little time talking about that because I think it was, I went, and as Tina experienced at the middle school event, they changed the format. I got to see the presentations of all 6 teams. They were all in a single room. And it was really quite astounding, not only to see the work that students had done for many months leading up to it, but their presence and their ability to speak and to explain themselves. It was truly astounding. Each team has at most 6. We had 6 on every team because we used a lottery. And of the 36 students on the teams, 35 were able to make it the day of the event. So the kids all get there. It was great. One had a conflict. But for GMS, this program began with a state technology grant approved in December of 2017. We ran it last year and then this, and it is in the budget for next year. So I anticipate that this will continue. The It's random selection, so it included students, I believe, from K to 4. I'm sure it was at least 1 to 4. And so there were students from all grade levels on mixed teams. I think there was one all-female team and one all-male team, as I recall. And I don't know, I think that the 36 students were chosen, and then the teams were made. I think that's how they did it. So it began with problem solving. The students had to grapple with, what do you need to know about the moon to live there? What will you eat and drink? How will you get energy? How will you breathe? What will you do for fun? And then an open question, what are the problems will you have to solve? Because once they begin talking about it, they're going to have to come up with other issues, and they will, and then they have to solve them. Their job was to design and build a moon base, use the Lego rocket ship and other elements from a particular set. They had to show their ideas about how they solved one of the problems, and they had to program with a web WeDo 2.0, at least one moving part of this in the system to solve a problem of living in the environment. And then they have a public performance. They have to do a show me poster and explain what they've learned. And they can opt, though we did have 6 teams. I do think we were the largest single elementary program that was there. I don't remember 6 from any other school. But I also gave you pictures of the awards that the teams won. To be clear, every team wins an award at the first Lego Expo. But what they do purposely do is focus on what area was the greatest strength for that team. So it's not, random. They really evaluate and give them awards. So I just wanted to share those pictures, which are now posted in our lobby, and also to give a shout out to the teams. The teams, and the names are always great. The Lunar Explorers, the coach was Kristen Patton. They won the Explore and Design Award. The Gravity Busters, under Teresa Planty, won the Discover and Program Award. The Secret Labbers, under Jessica Sabona, won the Cooperative Model Award. And the GMS Lego Moonwalkers, under Sandy McMullen, won the Design and Show Award. The Extreme Moon Masters, under Sarah Quimby, won the Innovative Programming Award. And the Model Design Award was won by the Galactic Superstars under Kristen Starrett. So, as I said, I thought it was important to give a little more definition to that. It was in my written narrative last time, but we didn't really talk about it. It all took place on May 3rd, and I think 4th rather, and I think we met on May 8th. So the second thing I wanted to talk about, the board will remember that I think in 2017, we changed our approach to classroom parties. The reason we did that is that they had grown to the point that there were, entire families of the students in the class, up to 22, would show up for the classroom parties. When we discussed security and those kinds of concerns, it became something of incongruity, I guess we could say, where we're opening the doors for families to come in because we want to be welcoming, but there's no way to really vet and, kind of screen. So we continue to look. We've made so many changes and improvements and tightening up the security, but we continue to look at places where we feel there's a risk, I guess. So the current one that we've been looking at is the lunchroom visitations. So it was brought to my attention recently by a parent, and I'll just say that they came in to visit. There's no vetting that's going on. I acknowledge that's true. They're coming in to visit. And then I said, well, I'm going to look into this. So we've had discussions before in the office. I reached out to other schools in New Hampshire. I had a pretty good and very quick response from about 15, because some of them were the next day, elementary schools. And they do a variety of things. I didn't reach out to middle and high school because I don't think it's that common a practice.
My
Right?
daughter would kill me if
Oh
I
my
showed up for lunch.
I know, right?
It's
I
not.
know, I threatened.
I think they would be shocked if they went into.
I do envision a high school student having one.
Right.
Tommy would love it if I went in there.
What are you doing?
So there were quite a few responses, and the things that people do, everybody does sign in with stickers. We do that. But the things that other schools have done are, some say no, which I think is kind of cold. But if there's a way we can make this work. Others only do it with advance notice and reservation. Some people scan licenses of all visitors and volunteers. I actually asked that principal, because there is a program that does on-the-spot background checks based on a driver's license. And I said, do you do that? He said, no, we scan and make a copy. So that's good for after the fact, if there's an issue, but it doesn't really address, whether we.
Can I just ask, 'cause when I saw this
Yep.
report, I wasn't quite sure like what we're getting at.
Yeah.
I mean, does this parent have a concern, or do you have a concern as far as parents coming in? I guess I don't understand what the issue is.
Yeah.
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 So I do, and he did, the parent who wrote me did.
Has an issue with other parents coming in?
Well, even his own ability to come in, sign in, get a pass, and go to the cafeteria. So I do have an issue or a concern, because we not only have parents who appear, which seems simple enough, we actually have extended family members who sometimes will show up and want to go have lunch with their kids, their grandchildren, or nieces and nephews. So the question becomes, how do we assure a better level of security? And so we had to grapple with that. So we do want to continue the practice because we think it's really good for the community. It's great for the kids to have lunch with grandparents. And so I'm proposing for next school year, it's June 5th, so nothing right now. And I wanted to bring it to the board in advance because there were questions long after the fact with the party changes that were made, even though that had been vetted with parents and the PTO and all of that. So the few simple changes we'd like to make is just having signage reminding people that are visiting that they're required to sign in at the desk. We're going to ask anyone who's visiting for lunch for an ID because we'd like to know who's there. If somebody just comes and says they're visiting for lunch, we want to know who that is. We want to have a laptop available at the desk, not only for this event, but also for other events that might come where parents are visiting, so that we can check that they in fact are a parent or guardian of the children that we're opening them up to. So that seems to me like a prudent and minor step as far as parent inconvenience. And the last thing is that if parents are going to have grandparents who are visiting come to school to have lunch with the grandchildren, we would like not only notification, but to approve that in advance. Because otherwise, we just don't know if somebody says they're here for lunch, how do we know that they're safe? So it'll still allow the practice, but we wanted to have some kind of gatekeeping with it. The last thing is we considered, and we're kind of on the fence about this, of having a limit, like maybe 2 for lunch or something like that, and use Google Calendar or Sign Up Genius or something where people could reserve a spot. So those were our thoughts. As I said, I wanted to bring it to the board for you to have a chance to talk about it.
I don't have a problem with the ID thing, but I'm automatically thinking as far as like a lottery situation as far
Yeah,
as
it's
parents.
never good.
I mean, I've been there enough times myself for lunches over like the last 8-9 years.
Yeah.
I've never seen like an onslaught of parents there where it was just overburdening. If anything, the more parents you have, and the quieter the kids are, and the more control they are. Because every time I go to lunch, I end up sitting with like 3 or 4 So I always feel that I'm responsible, like a little chaperone for those kids. Like, so when it's not getting out of control, I'll tell them, go get a napkin, do this, put your hand up, get a straw, pick up your food, finish your food. I'll even tell them to eat. It's like, they're not even my kids, but.
It's a natural.
Yeah. So if anything, you think it would be more of a benefit.
Yeah.
I mean,
I know
I can see if you were like, space restraints.
Yeah.
But I don't see a need personally as far as to limit the amount of parents coming in.
I would,
Well, the chart that I showed you is
Yeah.
how many people, I mean, it was up to 10,
Mhm.
8, 7.
Yeah.
And over the course of 4 lunches, so it's not necessarily all in one,
Mhm.
they tend to be parents of younger students.
Yeah.
So they are congested in the K-1-2 area, probably more.
but they also need more help
some
opening
days
their
it can be quite a
Go-Gurts.
few. So we're just trying to grapple with, it's an ongoing balance between security, welcoming the community, and we're just trying to find a good place to be with that.
And this parents was concerned about their child's safety and having parents in the lunchroom?
Well, his point was that he came and said that he was going to visit his child in the lunchroom.
Mhm.
And so when that happens, we sign them in, they get a pass, and they go to the lunchroom. But then he raised a whole lot of what ifs, and it's true.
Mike, the only thing I'd question is that new law that went into effect a year or so ago. If they're not fingerprinted by the district, they're not supposed to be an attendant in the building, right? So I think
They're not supposed to be unattended.
unattended in the building. If they're
Um,
not, I think if we open this up, we might want to just get clarification.
They need to be walked to
They
the
need to be walked to the
cafeteria.
cafeteria.
That's,
Yeah, that's a very good point because again, we trust that most people would walk down to the cafeteria on their own, but you do have that opportunity where they might not do that. So
I know.
there has to be some supervision.
If
We
Tina
don't
comes
let
to my
anyone-
classroom, we're covered because I'm under, but do the lunch monitors count for the state as far as
Supervising.
supervisors for somebody who hasn't been fingerprinted?
I've always taken the rule to be they can't be alone. They have to be with a staff member, but
So
we
that
can
would count.
verify.
I'm just, if we're opening this up, so
Yeah.
we don't have a problem.
Well,
do we
does a
want to-
lunch monitor count? I don't think it has to be a teacher, for example. I just think it has to be somebody on staff.
I will say my kids, when they, like you said, first, second grade, they loved it. I can still remember that. That was,
And we love it. Please don't get me wrong. We think it's a great benefit, as I said, not only in community connections, but for the kids, for the reasons you mentioned. It's another adult in the cafeteria. We're just trying to really grapple with anything that's raised or we think of as a good security concern. How do we control for that?
so you let the person sign in and just walk freely throughout the school?
No, they say that they're coming to have lunch.
And then someone walks them to the cafeteria?
No, they don't. We don't have anyone to walk somebody to the cafeteria.
see, I
I have a problem with that. No one's allowed in our hallways in school
Yeah.
without a person.
they're walked everywhere.
That's where
They
the,
can walk in any classroom.
They shouldn't be able
It's not
to.
just lunch.
Yeah.
they should not be able to.
They'll walk in, like if they're a room parent, if they walk in and they're gonna go to a party, they just basically sign in, get a name badge, and they're gone.
That scares me.
But at the same time, I realize that like, first grade parents are probably a little different, but then by second grade, you get the same office staff, they probably know every parent,
Mhm.
so they know who they are. So, okay, I'm going to whoever's class.
I think the problem is in that school, it's not just, in a lot of schools, it's like office, cafeteria,
Yeah.
office, gym.
Right.
This, you walk through the whole,
Right.
Yeah.
every hallway, you can go anywhere.
Well, it sounds just like buttoning up our security measures when anybody comes into the building.
Exactly.
For any reason, which I don't have a problem with. I think I don't want to put more on
Mhm.
on poor Mary, but
Right.
That's kind of the way things are going and the way things.
At the same time, I'm thinking like a possible easy solution, so we're not like carting back and forth, that if they're gonna come for lunch, they have to be there like 5 minutes before the lunch. And
Walk everybody
the
down.
entire group
person
would be
comes down.
escorted, and
Yeah.
if anyone who shows up right at lunchtime, whatever, you have to say, I'm sorry, I can't bring you down. I realize that's a little tough, but I mean, that way you only.
Well, and
bother
something
one
like
person.
a lunch reservation service would could help too because
That's tough too, like, I'm sure a lot of parents,
Well-
sometimes, I know myself, it's like, if I'm doing something, and if I can get there, I will, if not, I'm not.
yeah. But if you
And I
say
will-
I might show up for lunch on Friday, then at least you can have a list in the office and then just kind of check them in.
I think
When
the
they
tough thing is
arrive.
like when one kid's sick, so you're home and you unexpectedly, I used to call the school and say, I come in.
Right.
it'd be nice if we at least gave them warning, but I don't know if you can do it 24 hours.
No, but some kind of an advance, let us know by that morning.
And I guess backing up, the only other question I'd have, Scott, is I don't even think you need the signage on the front door if we have controlled access. If we just have a sign that says
Right.
everybody check in at the office, you really don't need one for lunch and everything. It's controlled access now.
But at the middle school, they have that sign, I believe. High school does too, but I know at the middle school, it's certain. All
I
business.
think the
must
high
sign.
school is check in at the office
Yeah.
somewhere.
Do you have signage? You don't have signage like that already?
Do we have what?
Just a sign that says everyone must check in at the office?
Yes, and everybody does.
Sorry, that.
But what I'm
Yeah.
saying is if somebody comes for lunch.
Yeah.
We don't have a process for vetting. One of the schools said they only have trained volunteers who are allowed to come in for lunch.
Yeah,
I think that's a lot. I mean, I think
Yeah,
that's.
that is a
you
lot.
know, So
So-
the kind of,
I know when I drop my kids off for camp, they have a pickup form. Like you can authorize certain people to be a pickup person, right? At camp. What if at the beginning of the year we do that same, we send out a form and say, mom and dad and, or guardian one and then a grandparent, like they could list the people who are authorized to come visit potentially, which might make kind of the processing each day a little
And then
bit
you can
easier.
just check
Then
and
you
see if
have
they're
that
in that
list, see if they're
database.
on that pre-approved list.
well, and we do have emergency contacts, so that's helpful.
Yeah.
So if they've listed a grandparent as an emergency contact, then we're certainly, we would be comfortable with that.
So I got me thinking about something else. Let's talk off topic for a moment. We're talking about security and parents and children. I would say the pickup is more concerning to me right now that I think about it than lunch and people walking through. Let me tell you why. So there's two doors and people still come in the door they shouldn't occasionally. But it's about, and I've been thinking about this, why it's the exit. Because I sign off on my child. I go into that gym and there's 50 kids in here. I go out the other door.
The back cafeteria, the back gym door.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
never anyone they're actually in our process, we should have two people. One checking, yep, okay, you're here to pick up Zoe. The next person at the other end saying, yep, you got Zoe, okay, have a good day.
Or station them at the back
How many
door.
people get picked up a day?
Probably 30, 40.
Yeah, I'd say
Wow.
that's about
So
right.
10% of the school gets picked up
And then you also have the kids in there from
after school.
St. Francis, after school. And then if all of a sudden you have Cub Scouts in there or the
Cheerleading
Girl Scouts,
club, yeah.
sometimes there's like, 50,
Ski
60.
club.
And you
kids in
can't dismiss the buses until all those kids are gone.
Until yes, they all get signed out, they're accounted for.
there. That's not, the issue is not getting those kids out.
It's getting them out of the building.
No,
Well, I want to know why my child has to wait while all these pickup kids need to be checked out. If have a child on GMS, why do I have to wait, my child have to wait an extra 20 minutes, 15 minutes until all these kids who get picked up? That's my question.
They don't have to wait all that long.
What time do they get dismissed?
So the early bell for the parent riders is 2:50.
And I go by at 3:09 to 3:15 and there are still buses there most days. That's a 25-minute dismissal. I think that's excessive for kids that ride the bus. And I'm not picking on you. I just think it's a lot of kids being picked up. And my kid who has to ride a bus, which he doesn't, the kids in my neighborhood don't get home because they have to wait 20 minutes for all these kids to get picked up. Sorry to people who pick up their kids. I think it's excessive. There has to be a better way of doing it. I'm sorry, I went off track. You're off subject. But do you see my point?
Well, I don't know why they
Yeah.
don't dismiss the kids onto the buses earlier than they do, but I mean, we're talking safety right now, so
Yeah.
we'll come back, we'll do the bus. when we do
Okay,
the
we'll go
bus.
back to that.
But I mean, just something to think about having a second point person at the door. Since we're talking about security and I've been thinking about it for a while. It's like a double check. Okay, I'm gonna pick up Zoe. Now when I'm leaving, do I have Zoe and 3 other kids or do I have Zoe?
But if there are only 2 people in there with like 40 kids, that's a lot for those 2 people to do.
It's 2 doors, one in each door. I'm
Why
not
not
saying
just have someone at the exit door?
you could, but then a parent can just walk in and get their kid and like take off the other door.
Oh.
I'm just saying, if we're gonna watch doors, then have 2 people doing the process.
Or do pick up like we do drop off? I know that now we're way off. So I'm just gonna back that up and keep that under my hat. So are you looking for an approval to go ahead with these policies or?
Well, it's a procedure
Okay.
that I wanted to bring it to the board to give you a chance to grapple with it and talk about it and tell you that we're grappling with it. These are things that we'd like to do. So certainly checking IDs, we've already begun doing that. That's really easy. I don't think it's a big change. If a non-parent is coming to visit, we want to be able to check with the parents that that's okay that they be visiting.
I think Tara, I mean, if you're gonna have a laptop right there, it may be like too much work as far as if you've already imported those potential visitors into the laptop. And then if you also, Jane Doe comes to go see John Doe and you just like type it in, you see that person's authorized, you check their ID and you know they're okay to see.
Yeah, so anyone who has permission to dismiss the child, we would tend to allow to visit the school.
So you can do the same thing similar to lunch, yeah.
Yeah, so if, I guess if they're not an emergency contact, then we would ask parents just to send a note saying our grandparents from Illinois are here this week, they'd like to come for lunch, we're okay with that. That doesn't happen often, but it has happened in different states. So I just wanted to bring this to the board because I know any change like this will disturb some parents, but I just want you to understand.
I think it would be more of a burden if you start limiting
Yeah.
how many parents.
Okay,
So
so,
my bigger concern.
and I don't see that as necessary. In June, everyone tends to do this more. So the fact that I did the
Yeah.
month of May is because it came up in the month of May.
Right.
But I don't think typically we have so many. So I'm okay with not doing that. But I just wanted you to be aware and to have you have a chance to speak about it.
Can I say, for parent meetings, IEPs, 504s, does the teacher meet them at the front office?
They sign in at the front office and yes, then they wait in the chair
Or the
till,
teacher?
because those are in the conference room, just
Yeah.
down the hall.
Yeah.
So,
Well, when I've been at the high school, so dropping off an instrument, I, sometimes ask, can I just bring it down to the band room for her? And they, the front office is very, nope, sorry, just leave it here. We'll take care of it. But I have had the experience of just walking into GMS and going wherever I want to. So that is concern. I mean, everybody knows me and I'm a school board member. So, but I think if we can beef up our front, our.
I wonder if for
our intake-
safety, aren't there doors right there that go down the hallway?
Yep.
Should those be closed and locked? So people that do come in can't go any further?
Are they normally?
The
I thought we had
doors are
talked
closed,
about
but they're not
closed.
locked.
And should those be, I just,
I thought we had
The
talked
ones
about
going-
having another
the ones going
another
down the
buzzer
hallway?
to,
Oh, those are closed during the day?
yeah.
Oh, that's good.
Keep
Yeah,
the cool and.
That's just part of the
I hate to make.
the way the
fortunes.
facility is set
Yeah.
up. I mean, the office can't even see those doors, so it's just that's a challenge point for us.
Yeah.
it has been discussed as a future wish,
Mhm.
so that there would be another monitoring system for that set of doors.
Yeah.
But to make it secure, you'd also have to have a secure door at the gym, and you'd have to have a secure door at the OT room at the other end of the
Yeah.
hall. So now there are 3 other locked doors that would require access.
Something to think about for the
Yep.
capital planning committee.
So we'll
That's
take
right.
baby steps.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
All right. Mr. Select Letter.
Okay, I think I misspoke earlier.
Scott used most of the time.
When I was, yeah. All right, I'll make it quick. I think I misspoke earlier about the chaperone, so I just want to clarify. So just to be clear, for example, this year, Dave Gilmore did go, he teaches by quarter. So his quarter is grade 8, fourth quarter. One of the reasons is because that way when he chaperones, we don't have to get
Perfect.
coverage. And as I thought through this after our conversation, I don't recall having to bring a sub in. Typically what happens is we start with our core 8th grade team. If we have, and typically most of them go, but if you can't, then that's when we look out, but then they cover for each other. So that's the general process. So if I wasn't clear, I apologize on that. So yeah, so we came back from Washington, and as Dr. Jetty said, it is a big deal, and there's a lot of prep that goes into this. So I thought I'd spend just a minute. I don't think I do this every year. So just to give you a flavor, some of you have had 8th graders, the trip. Some of you have kids getting ready to go in a couple of years, maybe. So it all starts in the fall. We do a parent information night. We talk about Washington. We talk about fundraising. That carries us through a good part of the year. This year we did 3 fantastic fundraisers. You hear me talk about the donuts. You hear me talk about the subs. All 3 were successful, but the donuts and the subs, something about the food, were very popular again this year. And I was happy to see students who needed some scholarship money this year. We had just very generous donations that came in. So we had a great group of kids. First, I'll just start with the chaperones, and since we already talked about this, but just so you know what the team was. Miss Karen is the science teacher, Mr. Frazier, the lit tech teacher, Miss LaChance, Miss Garrett, Miss Sheffer, our school psychologist, came, Miss Dwyer from grade 6, Mr. Gilmore, and Miss Helbling, our Spanish teacher. We had parent chaperones as well. Miss Tarian, Miss Erdemer was the nurse that came, Mr. Carden, Mr. Barca, and Mr. Sullivan. So we left right on time. We left at 6 a.m. We got down there. We did a little bit of, we didn't do a lot of touring before dinner, but we were able to do some drive around, see some things. The next day, Wednesday, it was very unusual. We had breakfast. We had breakfast in the hotel, and then we start touring. We went to the White House, and we were the only ones in front of the White House. It was about 8:30 in the morning. There was no one there. Just the police. So we were able to get some really cool pictures. We just had access right up to the gate there. The kids were fantastic. The weather was great. Both major touring days, Tuesday or Wednesday and Thursday, weather was really, really good. Kind of overcast in the 70s, so really good for pictures and walking around. Started in the White House that day, and then outside the White House, and then did a lot of touring. And I made a list of just some of the highlights. But that morning, that Wednesday morning, we were able to walk right up to the archives. We did the Supreme Court this year. We actually got to go look into the chambers of the Supreme Court. That's something we have not been able to do before. The lines can be very long over there. So that was neat for the kids. Smithsonian Air Space Museum, Natural History Museum, and American History Museum. We did a walk around the Capitol building. We got the full tour of Arlington, as we always do, the changing of the guards, the Challenger Memorial, and a number of other stops along the way as we go through Arlington. It was a really nice day that day. It was supposed to rain. It didn't. The temperature was great. The Pentagon Memorial. So last year was the first year we were able to do. Has anyone seen the Pentagon Memorial before? It's really incredible. That was the last stop on the second day. We got there. I think we pulled in around 9. So just we have bookends of the day. We're getting up early, late, but 9 o'clock. So it was all lit up, and they've taken all of those who lost their lives at the Pentagon. There were some that were in the Pentagon, and then some on the plane. And they have representative sort of like airplane wings that are lit up, and a pool of water kind of around the wing. And they designate the age of the victim based on the length of the pool. So the first pool is a 3-year-old, and it's unbelievable, And so there's trees. It's just really, really well done, with some really neat things throughout there, just talking about the lives of some of those who were lost and things. So that's been really powerful. The last couple of years we've done that. And then some memorials, the FDR Memorial, Jefferson Memorial, World War II Memorial, Vietnam Memorial. This year, a bunch of kids that were with me, you always see, because this is a very live and active memorial, the Vietnam Memorial, there was a veteran who was clearly there for somebody, either family member or someone he was with. He was all decked out in the veteran attire, and he was just bawling his eye. It just really, really sad. And his wife was with him, and just the impact on the kids. It was just for them to see this guy, and a couple of them went over and thanked him for his service, and it was it was a really neat moment. So Vietnam Memorial is always just one of those. It was right near dusk, so it was sort of lit a little bit. Lincoln Memorial, the MLK Memorial, which is one of the newer memorials down there. We hit the National Zoo at a really fitting time. It's like the third day. Kids are kind of spent, and then we do the gorillas and the panda bears. And then Thursday night, we go out on the Potomac on the Spirit of Washington cruise, which was a great night. It was supposed to rain. It cleared. The weather was really perfect for the cruise. And the kids had a great time on that. And then on the way out, we hit a souvenir shop the next day. And it was just all around. I can't say enough about the kids. They were fantastic all week, on time, just cooperative. It's a really solid group of kids. They get along really well, but it was a great week. So thank you to the community for the support, and just all around a great experience for the kids. So that's the DC trip. And the second thing, I was going to piggyback off Mary's report, just the grading and reporting committee. And I just want to recognize the teachers. So we've been at this for quite a while as a district, but it's amazing the progress we've made this year. But I just want to recognize Rena Karen, Heather Dwyer, Heather Stein, Audrey McCullum, Martha, and Lisa Lasaki, which is our core middle school team. And I've been saying this a few different times this year, but they asked me to meet in between meetings. Like, Tom, can we have another meeting just to meet about this? That's unusual. So they are very dedicated to the work. And I really like, Mary talked about how the themes are worked into our theme, Do Your Best, our core values. We talked to the kids a lot about this, but I really like how it reflects, and it's not perfect. I think we're still going to work through things over time, but just being able to, for us, we've lined up the state language with literally in front of you on the rubric. So for example, self-direction is the B, believe in yourself. Collaboration is the E, extend a helping hand. Communication is show respect, and citizenship is take responsibility. So we're looking forward to our team, because as you hear a lot, we talk about Do Your Best in our PBIS program, making those connections so that it's not just an isolated thing on a report card, or it's not just an isolated thing in a classroom, but it really is culturally a way to connect this to live action in the middle school throughout the various things that we do. In PBIS, we don't just talk about classroom, we talk about cafeteria, bus, assemblies, and all the different settings of the school. So likewise, we're going to be able to work this language into the ebb and flow of life at the middle school. So really happy with the work. The other thing that we added, the team this year, and I think they're going to continue to add some of the examples, and to your point there, Mr. Myers, about timeliness. I think that would be a perfect thing we want to illustrate for parents and kids. Okay, so this is self-direction. These are the bullets under self-direction, but what specifically does that look like? And we've done role playing and different things through our PBIS groups before, but really putting it into a visual for the kids to see that. So we've got a list of examples, and we're going to continue to work on that and how that will look for the rollout next year. So thank you to Mary and the leadership, and to the group and all of their work this year.
Any questions for Ms. Ledbetter? Thank you very much. Thanks. Mr. Lonigan.
Hello. So we're at the sprint. We've been doing a marathon. We're at the sprint. So the end of the year is crazily coming to a finish, and my wife and I see each other in passing, but she understands. So two things. The first one is looking at our competency recovery and grade and competency recovery. We've met over the course of the year a number of different times with the curriculum facilitators and the leadership team, sort of trying to figure out what this should look like going forward, and presented ideas across to the faculty. So there are two components to this, and we typically think of summer school at Campbell High School and some of the challenges that we've seen in the past about that. So what we've done this year is, our plan is for summer school to change things up a little bit. Traditionally, it's been credit recovery, and the failing grade stays on the record. We're moving past that. which is a strong positive right now. It took some arm twisting, it took some cajoling, but the teachers understand the need to move in a different direction than we've been in. So for the first one, for competency recovery, if you're not aware, in the past, if a student failed a competency, they would recover the competency typically in summer school. Okay, they'd spend some time, they'd do the formatives, do the summatives, recover that competency. They would recover the credit, but they would not recover the grade earned. So we were just talking about this for an ICT Pathways student today who earned a 72, failed one competency, failed the course. Student has an F on the transcript. It's fairly simple to recover that student in a competency program in summer school by simply having the student come in, do the formatives, do the summatives, reassess. It's also fair to that student to recover that 72 grade that student earned previously.
Yay! I may have experienced this personally.
So this is the direction that we're going to head in with respect to students recovering this summer. We're not going to charge them $150 for competency recovery. We're going to charge them per competency. Teacher has to do some extended work. It's not simply one piece of paper, one project, one assessment. There's multiple assignments and multiple things that needs to occur there. So they're looking at charging $75 a competency up to a maximum of $150. That's it. Student fails 2 competencies and gets a 73 in the course. They come in, they spend their time, they do the work, the teacher assesses, there's some planning, preparing, and those other things. And the student then, if they're successful, they get the earned grade. What will happen with the transcript, however, is we want it to reflect that it was competency recovery. So the course will have the grade of a 72. It's passing. It'll get averaged in as a 72, which is fair. Under the course description, it will say competency recovery. Now, that has a related piece to that moving beyond that, which is when you send out your school profile to the colleges, you have to explain what your grading systems are. They want to understand how students are passing, when they're passing, when they're not passing. So we have to change the school profile to reflect that will show on the student's transcript. So they'll at least understand, student got a 72, passed the course, had to do some extended time in order to pass the class. Okay, so it still would denote it took additional time. For the student who failed the course between 50 and 64, that student will have to recover the course. They're going to have to do the formatives and the summatives. The goal will be to allow that student to bring that grade up to a passing grade. It will still be a traditional $150, regardless of how long it takes the student will still have a chance to recover. All right. So again, the new grade would be changed to a 65. The challenge teachers were facing as they were talking about this was if the student earns a 53 with another teacher in a classroom setting, how do we justify bringing that grade up to a 72 or a 74 or 75? There's real difficulty in managing what that should actually look like. There's been some conversation about whether it should be a D or whether it should be a C. Okay, what should that truly reflect in there? And this is the difficulty of assigning grades and getting to that subjective piece sometimes of what the grade should look like.
So I guess I'm confused because
Sure.
I thought if a student fails a class,
Yep.
they don't get credit for the class.
Correct.
So they have to take that class again or no?
No. If they pass with a 53 or 55,
Is that a passing grade?
it's not. Excuse me. If they fail with a 53 or a 55,
Yeah.
they've mastered a good part of the material for that course. Okay, so what are the competencies they failed? What are the assignments that we need to give them to ensure that they understand what they should be able to know and do for the rest of that course? If they can demonstrate that they're competent, then okay, we can move them forward. You don't give them the 53, right? You have to give them a grade. And the difficulty is negotiating what that should look like there.
Are we going to cut off? A kid just blows everything off. I hate to, I'm talking both sides. Kid has a 37, turns nothing in. I just don't know if he should be eligible for.
No, correct. And that student would not be. You'd have to get at least a 50.
Okay.
Okay, you get at least a 50, you're eligible to do the competency and grade recovery.
3 competencies? If there are 3 competencies, they could do all 3?
I don't think
That's the challenge. Okay, typically what we said, you have to pass at least half the competencies. if the course is failing. Now, if you have a course with 5 competencies,
You're screwed.
you have a little decision. If you have 6, you have to pass 3.
Well, I don't think a lot of people who don't have high schoolers realize is that you can still fail a class if you have an 80 average. If you failed one part of the competency, I know a couple of members of this
Absolutely.
board have had this. Your child could have an 80 in the class, but got a 58 on their competency. They go to summer school, they make it up, and they still have an F, bringing their GPA down.
That's
No.
how it's changing.
That's
And this is what.
Is it going to be retroactive, or is it starting this year?
It's not an issue.
Talk to him about
Come
that.
on.
We have to draw a line in the sand on this
Yes.
one, sorry.
Right.
The only other point I would make was I just hope we don't see kids flunking 2 competencies with a C plus. You know, I hope that doesn't
They
happen.
should not.
I know.
But
I can see 1, maybe if it's not assessed enough, but
Yes.
geez, that 2, then that tells us.
And we expect 4 summatives in each of the competency
Well,
areas.
what if
you
there
know?
wasn't 4 competencies and your child failed it?
You should have a conversation with the principal.
I think I will.
So I have another question about the fees.
Yeah.
Is charging a fee for summer school a typical thing, or is it, that's a normal thing?
Some parents make their
It is.
children pay for it, so they have skin in the game.
And-
Well, and that's, you know, I'm sure that if a family cannot afford summer school, but their student needs it,
We-
there are means.
We do. Yep.
Where does this money go?
Where does this money go? It goes towards paying the teachers. Okay.
Is it gonna
It's
be funneled
self-fund-
through the
It's self-funded.
district?
So
Okay.
what happens is we pay a stipend to the 2 coordinators of summer school.
Mhm.
Okay, so they do a lot of work on the front end in terms of, in fact, this year, revising forms, coordinating things, getting out notices to parents, scheduling teachers, doing all those things. And then on the back end, working to figure out who's passing, who's not, and doing those other things. So there's a stipend to them. The monies within it pay the teachers' salaries who come in. And the way it's been set up has been one teacher, English does 1 week, one teacher, science does another week, social studies another week, and math another week. The challenge you have, however, is in your electives. And this is where it'll get a little bit interesting. I mentioned ICT pathways. So we have a student who failed a competency. Okay? We didn't have a possibility of that student at the semester break having a chance to do that, or at the end of the school year having a chance to do that, because you typically don't have a teacher available to teach summer school for 1 or 2 children.
Mhm.
But what you can do now is you can say to that computer teacher, would you like to earn a small amount of money to work with a student for 2 or 3 hours and to recover this competency? So there might be some possibilities to think a little differently. Right now, we're looking at the 4 core areas, because that's simply traditionally when you've seen
Yeah.
your larger numbers of students not having success.
Can I ask another question?
Sure.
And this has nothing to do. Last year, I noticed there were over 30 kids in the math recovery, and there was only 1 teacher. Are you going to have another? I think that's a very high ratio for 1 teacher to hold it all together.
I hadn't thought about that, but.
No,
but-
last year might have been an abnormal
An
year,
aberration.
but that was 1 teacher in charge of all of those kids in competency recovery. I thought that was a lot.
There were about 26 with 1
So
social
this-
studies.
Well,
Yeah,
was
that's
it Hastings last year? Yeah, he's remarkable.
So the
teacher.
students don't recover the competency with the teacher that they have.
Say
That
that
they
again.
had, so that the students don't necessarily recover
No.
the competency
Right.
with their teacher.
Correct.
It's
But they
a
give
teacher
them the
that teaches
paperwork.
that
They
subject.
give them the stuff they need to make up for their competency. Yes.
So,
that-
so here's another piece to that, which is one of the things we're looking at for next year during final exams.
Mhm.
Okay, so you have a student who takes a first semester course, but they have to wait till June to recover.
Right.
Okay, there's a lot of gaps that occur in an adolescent's mind in terms of recovering. So maybe during exams, we have a competency recover program
Yeah,
for kids.
I love
You know,
that.
so you have teachers who are doing 2 exams a day over that course of time. Well, maybe we have an opportunity to do competency recovery each of those days during the exam, so students can meet up with that teacher.
But then those teachers aren't getting paid for that because they're already there.
Well, and I think, but
They have teaching.
Mike,
Right.
didn't Bedford do something where the majority of the school get out a day early and students needed content?
Yeah, and it was at the midterm point. So there was
Right.
competency recovery embedded into the midterm final exam schedule in January. So there are models that
But
exist.
could
on
you
that.
also do that at the end of the year too?
Oh, really?
Have it during finals week
Is it-
instead of
You-
an extended,
you
you
could
know, an
possibly.
add-on over the summer?
Yes, you could possibly.
I
And
would,
then, and then you're worrying about the grade and competency recovery.
right.
Right. You know, because the challenge for teachers is you need to have an end date.
Mhm.
And sometimes
Yes.
that end date, it's manageable to do one competency, but there's a lot of work that might be needed to be done. So you may not have enough time
In that 1 week.
in that one, right, but if it's two competencies, you're getting into, and as Rob says, hopefully not, but if it's two competencies, or they've actually failed the course with the 62, and they might need some significant work to be done.
Mhm.
Yeah, so there's some work in progress, which is,
My only concern, I guess, the educator, is the kid who's got, you fail two competencies, you've got a 56. I'm all for the kid that has the 81, that fails one competency, has 72, even a 68 that has one competency. Kid's got a 53, fails two competencies out of 5. Is 4 hours in the summer going to get him competent or 2? I just wonder, does the cutoff need to be, if you're failing, you fail two competencies, you need to take the class over, right? I know I'm kind of going both ends of the wagon.
Yeah.
I wonder if are we just giving them a grade, give them a grade at that point? I think a kid with an experience, a kid with an 81 that fails one competency by 1 point, there is a difference when you have a 53 and you fail 2 or even 3 competencies.
How did they do this in Bedford and Timberlane? I'm from Massachusetts.
Well, I was actually getting ready to answer this question. I'll come back to this one. But I was just thinking that with the summer program, I mean, it potentially it's 3 hours a day, 5 days. So
Actually,
you're looking at a 15-hour.
7:30 to 12. So it's about 4.5 hours. a day.
Okay. So there's a long
5
time
days.
period. And so some students, so really when you add that number of hours up, the ability to get from that 53 with dedicated work, it does exist. And there are going to be other kids who will be done, say, on Monday, because they have less work to do.
during finals
So meeting that
And
competence
I
will
would
be
think too,
quicker.
if you fail two competencies and you have a 53, the chances of you possibly passing again, it may not.
Right.
It depends how much work they want to put in as far as to like recover those competencies.
And we've had students who have not been successful in summer school.
And to answer, so I'll give my MV experience in Bedford was similar. We were really trying to find ways to embed the competency recovery into the work of the school year, right? So that way the teacher of record stayed the teacher of record. They then managed it. But what we had to do was free them up from, they couldn't be asked to teach all students 180 days and do competency recovery with a handful of students. So if you could release students who had met competency earlier, and then have the staff stay and work strictly with the students who are struggling. Because then they can double down, triple down on students because they've got the time to do it. So that's the piece of getting crafty. So, maybe not all students need to go to school 180 days. So some students might be released at day 175 and you then embed this competency recovery into the practice. So teachers are still teaching, they're still in the classroom, but they're working with the students who need the work and releasing the students who
So
are
no
not.
kids in Bedford fail a class if they pass.
Oh, no, kids in Bedford.
No, I'm just curious.
But but you embed that opportunity to do that recovery within. So not all students, you can
Right.
lead the horse to water, but they're not all
Exactly.
going to drink. So
We do
unfortunately.
what we call remediation plans, which is competency recovery all throughout the semester.
This is a huge step in the right direction.
I was going to
Yeah.
say, at least
Yeah.
we're like going in the right direction. I think it's definitely.
Yep, we've still got some work to do, but this is a good start here.
Thank you.
Okay, and so the second thing I wanted to talk about is our SAS, the statewide assessments and our test scores. So we haven't had a chance to dig deeply into this with our data team, but I did want to just give you a general sense of where we are. We had 103 students take the science assessment back in early May, right after break. Our scores went up this year. We talked about this administratively and scores, and I don't have a real context for this, but we've seen some growth in our student scores. What I'll give you in sort of a broad sense right now is I took a look at this today, but my data team took a look at it after school. I was not there because I was in a graduation meeting, so trying to prepare for graduation. So Sean Conley's doing a real nice job in sort of trying to pull people together to look at these things. So when we looked at the science scores, at first blush, it was kind of like cringing a little bit. We had 41 students who scored low. Okay, so out of 103, it's about 40% of these students. It's concerning.
So what grade level are these students? Are these all
These
juniors?
are juniors. These are the juniors. Yeah. So the two I'll be talking about, SAT and,
Okay.
and the science assessment. So 16 of our students scored at level 2, which is at or approaching the standards, what they should be doing for their age. We had 42 students who scored at level 3, okay, which is on or above. And then we had 4 students who scored level 4. So if you look at that, 41% are scoring low. You know, if you take the 16 others who are at the 2, it's 57 students. Having said that, our scores, one, are better than last year. And they're better both in the science testing, and they're also better in the SAT testing. What we haven't had a chance to do is look at the 3 different sections of the test, number one. So there's a life sciences, a physical sciences, and earth and space sciences. We haven't had a chance to take a look at those and break those down and get a sense of, okay, what do we have to do to commit our science teachers, freshman, sophomore, junior year? What are the areas that our students need some additional instruction or some work with? So the nice thing about today's meeting is Kate Devine, the science teacher, was there, and she was the science curriculum facilitator. And my understanding is she was all enthusiastic about the released items and about when the state is going to release what the practice items are and how can we sort of work them into the curriculum for next year. So that's one piece to this that'll be a little bit helpful. But we also haven't had a chance to look at the types of questions and the hard, medium, low challenge questions and how our students are those. So when we get a chance to do that, I think we're going to be doing some data work this summer. So it'd be nice to have these scores to take a look at and say, okay, what can we suggest to the science teachers across the curriculum, whether it's freshman science or biology or in some of the upper level courses, can we do to sort of to help them out?
Oh, that was 11th grade, right?
That's 11th grade. Yep.
Just to ask, when was the test given?
May, right after break.
When my son was a junior.
Yep.
I think what were we taking in SBACs? It was like 4 years ago.
Mhm.
They gave the tests the week of SATs. That the
Oh,
kids would
right,
take.
right.
And the kids told me point blank, kids that some of us know, they went, pretty good schools, and they just said they went in and Christmas treed it because they'd worry about ACTs, they'd worry about SATs. And what does this matter? We approached that, thought of that for the number. I just bring that up
Well,
because
That's what mine said
I
in
had-
7th grade.
Yeah.
I know kids who are pretty good students. They just told me they didn't want to stress over this. They didn't want to spend 2 hours, so they just Christmas treat it. And
There are ways to incentivize them and motivate them, and we've talked a little bit about what that should look like for our kids. There's no question some of them don't see the relevance of it, and kind of, but we can do some things
such a big
to
difference between
motivate them.
10th graders and 11th graders
Yeah.
because they're in college mode at that point,
Right.
and they know it's not going to help them.
Right,
So-
absolutely. But I think that's why you'll see a little different set of results with the SATs, because our SATs took a little bit of a jump this year. Those matter,
One thing I bring up, I heard this at another school in the Lakes region.
Yeah.
Their PTO donated, I think it was a iPad mini to the 11th grader and a pair of AirPods, and every kid that went up, just as talk about incentivizing,
Yeah.
and they only did it for 11th grade. And they just, if you got a 3, you got 1 ticket. If you got a 4, you got 2 tickets. If you went up from anything, you got a ticket, and then they raffled them off.
Yeah.
So when you talk about incentives, kids at that age can use an incentive. I think that's a tough
Yeah.
grade.
Nope, it's a great idea. And our PTO is doing such good work for us, so I'm putting that in my notes definitely.
We do something similar to that. Not
We don't do it, and I
Not
just
earbuds, but
yeah. Just as an option.
3 dozen Krispy Kremes.
Yeah.
About 2 months old. Let's warm them up in a microwave.
So with respect to the SAT, it's this is a good group of kids testing. So our total mean score this year was 1046. Okay, so that's your average score for your students. Last year was 1022. The year before was 1035, and the year before 1031. So our total mean, we've seen an increase in there. Our English reading and writing went up from a 518 to a 522. So that went up 4 points. The math went up 20 points.
Wow.
524 to 504. Yeah, so I was
What were the numbers again?
the math
Yeah.
went from 504 to 524.
That's about things going backwards.
Oh, I'm sorry. It went up 20 points. So I was like, I was thrilled to see that. And even over prior years, math, 2 years ago was 510. The year before that was 505. So we've seen some nice jumps there. If you look at those in comparison to the state of New Hampshire, the state of New Hampshire, their mean score was 1025. So it's significantly above that, about 21 points above that. And again, most of that was math. We were 15 points above the state average for math. They took a look, I think, you looked a bit today at the levels of questions and the questions, and we saw a little bit of change from last year.
Yes, some very positive change. One of the things that we had talked about early on in the year in the data team was the number of questions or the percentage of students that omitted questions was extremely high last year. We had some questions that upwards of 20 or 30% of students omitted. And looking at it, there were a lot fewer questions that were omitted this year, and there was no more than 10% that omitted any one question. So that was a positive trend to see.
Is that just getting the message out that it's better to fill in something than nothing?
I think that's part of it, working on test taking strategies and having that discussion as a, at the building data team and getting that communication out. So just the more we do that, the more we get people understanding how important that is.
Is this the first class that's gone through the SAT class?
Gee, let me
It is,
think.
I believe.
I
We
think,
started this year.
Yeah.
yes, yeah.
The seniors, was it the seniors that did it last year?
It's last year. Well, I'm trying to think if we did it my first year. I think
After school?
it was done after school.
This is the first year that
That's
it's done
correct.
in school.
Right, no, this is the first group, but we didn't run the class this year because we didn't have enough students sign up for it.
Oh, you did.
No, nope. So, but the other piece, I think down the road, one of the things we'll see is a little bit of that. Well, a couple of things. One is taking the 8-9, having the freshmen take the early one, having the sophomores and juniors do the PSAT. I think that'll be important. But I think also now that we're sort of really understanding what the data that's available is having our English, math, science, and social, well, not science, but social studies, take a look at the data and then say, okay, what are the strategies? What are the skills? What's the knowledge? What are some of those things where there are gaps in what we're trying to get kids to be able to do?
Well, I think science as well, because one of the things that when you look at the reading and writing specifically for the SAT, and that's one of the things that we talked about today, is being able to pull up, this test has released items, which we did not have last year, but being able to pull some of those specific questions that we didn't do so well on. And there is that component, the majority of the reading and writing, the text is either science or social studies based.
Right.
So.
So it was, so it's good to see those results. It'll be good to see the additional data and try to make sense of, okay, what can we apply without overdoing it in test preparation? But what of those things can we apply into our classroom and our instruction?
And one of the big discussions has been incorporating it on a more a regular basis, not test prep, but just modeling those types of questions and those types of strategies in the day-to-day, so that it's the kids, when they get to the test, it's natural.
Thank you.
So just, if I may, at the tail end of the CHS report, so 2 points I want to make. One is just on data in general. So Mary and I have talked about creating a district-wide data team and really sort of digging into it. So we've invited the principals to invite additional staff from their schools to participate in a data camp over the summer. And so we're in the process of getting that pulled together. We've got a few ideas of what that might look like, but finding common time in the summer is our challenge. But our goal is to really make sure that we have the training and the expertise to be able to dig into data, analyze the data, take deeper dives at it, and then use that to guide some of the instruction. So, the evidence-based writing prompt that is on the SAT is a formulaic type of writing. And the more we practice the formula in all our courses across the curriculum, the better off we're going to do. So just sort of understanding that, picking that apart, and then finding strategies to bring it alive will be key. And then one other event that I just want the board to be aware of. Actually, the three of us had a great day today because we drove up to Concord, and we had Campbell High School actually had the first place, second place, and third place statewide winners in the Bicentennial State House Art Mixed Media Contest.
Wow.
And so we sat in the council's chambers, and each student was recognized with a beautiful certificate plaque. That it was hand signed by Governor Sununu, It was the
The
Pictures.
Chief
Chief
Justice,
Justice.
Lynn,
And the
Speaker of the House. And so they said, and there was a fourth signature on it too.
President of the Senate.
That's right. And so just a huge recognition. We've got lots of photos. We'll get stuff tweeted out and shared. You'll see stuff in the HLN in the
Was Denise
future.
Freeman there?
Denise was able to
Awesome.
attend, and so did Paula Berry.
Paula Berry.
Great.
Uh, De-
Awesome.
Denise, there were two students who had done drawings, beautiful drawings, of the State House that ended up winning. And the third student was one of Paula's digital media students who actually designed the bicentennial postcard, was his concept. It's gorgeous. If the State House doesn't make copies of it and sell them, they're crazy. Because
That's
they're-
Well, we can do that then,
they
right?
are spectacular.
It
And
really is
so
beautiful. What a-
just did a great job. So I don't know if you had other thoughts. And then we were invited into Representatives Hall.
Yep.
I saw pictures.
Yeah, and
Leo's
all the
mom put
representatives
pictures
turned
of
around
him.
and applauded us in the
Yeah.
gallery.
Yeah.
So it was really quite an event.
That's awesome.
I will say that when we went into Representatives Hall, a couple of the other families said to myself and the student who did the postcard, like, we would buy that. We would buy that in a second. So I thought that was
That's great.
some really cool.
Congratulations to those students. Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you name them off the top of your head? I have them.
Zach Kirby.
Zach Kirby, Meredith Spots, and Leo Cotton.
Very good.
Yeah.
They were beautiful.
Yeah, they did great. All three of them
Great
did
work.
really nice job. Yeah, it
Awesome.
was fun to go up there.
Excellent.
It was a good day.
Anything else, Ms. Lonigan? So before we move on, Tom, can you just take a moment? Because I know you only had two things, but can you just mention Margaret Parent?
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's a big deal, so.
Didn't want to do number 3.
I know. But you're allowed.
So I mentioned last time that Mrs. Parent had been nominated for the Doris Barnes Retired Educator Lifetime Achievement Award, but she was selected. It's one person in the state, so it really is a big deal. I don't have all of that stuff I read last time, but she's going to be honored this Saturday at the Eddies at 3:00 at the used to be the Radisson.
Manchester.
Yeah.
Doubletree.
Doubletree.
Yeah.
Downtown Hilton. in
Overlooking
Manchester.
George's.
And we have a table that'll be full of people to help.
Awesome.
out. And I know Mr. Lonigan is working the event, and
My goal is to walk her up to this. I'm
Yeah.
one of the people who walks the recipients
Oh.
up to the stage. So my job is to grab her when I can and escort her.
Make sure she doesn't trip over her gown.
Yep, absolutely.
so it's you have to do at least 20 years, I think. She had 38 years of full-time service, and then she has 7 more years as a math tutor.
Yeah.
And just, I mean, it just goes on and on. You know. She's received a number of other awards. She won the Loyalty Award. She was the first recipient of the Pat Jewett Volunteerism
Yes, she
Award
was.
after Pat Jewett. So year 2. She's had many honors and well deserved. So
Congratulations.
Good for her.
Thank you. All right, that's going to bring us to our handbooks. So going through the handbooks, I guess the first thing is we don't seem to coordinate 3 schools together. Not even close.
We're starting.
Just starting by even just the keys to it, as far as the changes and that. Every school's a different color. Every school's works differently. And what's strange is that, like, there are some things you would think would be in all 3 of them, and they're not. Like, I think LMS has this whole thing on bus etiquette. How are you going to behave inside a bus?
They're probably the ones that have the most problems on the bus.
High school, yeah.
CHS just like, yeah, get on the bus. It's all over the place. You would think that there are certain components within this would be the same. The other one that got me, like, CHS, we obviously have a problem as far as attendance. That goes without saying, according to all the
Well-
changes. But I think the one that jumped out to me the most, and it's kind of like, I thought it's funny, the stealing part. Examples of stealing are stealing books. It's like,
Before my time, I mean, we can chop it apart, absolutely. But I think the challenge is working across 3 schools on
Yeah.
formatting and setup and all those things.
like, it seems like we did that with Alice, all 3 schools. But there were just all different parts of it that
Up on the bus.
And I understand, like, vaping is not gonna be a problem, I don't think, at GMS. So I understand
We hope.
addressing it at the high school and possibly
hope
even
not.
middle school.
Mhm.
But I don't know, they're all over the place.
We did do a reformat. So what we brought forward this year, I actually took a cue from Campbell High School in the way theirs is structured, because ours was hard to follow for parents, students, the whole thing. And took what was the most relevant topics as sort of like each section. So when you look at ours, the new format, and Michelle and I were talking today, because I know that she did some aligning across on some of that, but I think you're going to see more of a similarity to the flow of ours to what Campbell had, and just trying to align some of the formatting on that.
Like some of the things I didn't see either. Like I know, like when you go into LMS, there's a chart right there near the office of what is acceptable, what's not acceptable.
The clothing.
Oh, the board policy?
Huh?
The dress code. Yeah.
Yeah. Was that even in there? I don't recall.
I think it's one of the links to a policy, because it's
Link
the
to the
board
policy.
policy on dress code.
It's linked to it, yeah.
All right, I didn't open any of the links, but neither one of the other two schools have that, correct?
We have it on our back door, but not our front door.
And
And the students don't enter the back
No,
Is
door.
it the same? Is it the same as LMS?
I couldn't tell you that.
What are we talking about? The dress code?
Yeah, like you can't wear chains and you can't.
That's
have-
taken right out of the board policy, the one in our handbook. I know it
But I'm
is.
just wondering if all three, like,
It should be consistent across the
Should be.
three.
I
Are
agree.
you talking about in the handbook or at the school?
Well, in the handbook.
In the handbook, they're all the same except for a couple, like at GMS, you'll have like, what are they, the silly bands and the Heelys
Yeah, I mean,
or
there are
Heelys
some-
or whatever those are.
Right.
Whatever the fad is.
Yeah.
Silly bands are gone.
Oh, well, I don't.
Bottle flipping gone.
You know, and each school may have a little bit of a difference in there.
And I think all three schools, I think you have made a link to the dress. code
Yeah, all the
policy.
policies are
Yeah,
linked, yeah.
I
okay,
think that's true.
okay, that makes sense.
I know a lot of policies, they actually got shorter because Michelle.
I summarized most of
Yeah.
them, but
Yeah.
this year now they've kind of expanded.
So as far as like,
But we can tweak it.
yeah. Let's see if I can find it in CHS. And it's the attendance thing as far as how many days you can be late. Yeah.
And then it counts up and
As
adds
an
into
absence.
an absence.
But
Correct.
what constitutes late?
I think over 20 minutes, well, late,
Something that was at like 30 minutes late.
is it 30 minutes?
Well, that was one part of it. Like,
Right.
so we can find it. Then another was, it just said 3 lates. So I think 30-minute late is an absence.
No,
What is-
it's an accumulation of 3 lates, I believe,
So,
of 30 minutes.
So all the 5-minute lates are gonna add up to 30 minutes?
yeah, but you have 3 of those.
What
it's
we,
gonna
what
be
we ultimately
one.
end up
That's-
with doing with students who are late is they get to a 7th and we start assigning Saturday school
Detentions.
to them. And then Mike continues to,
Is that after
Totally.
20 minutes or is it 5 minutes late?
it's late. So the kids, you'll see them hustling in the door at 7:33 to get to their first block class because they don't want a 2-minute late.
But the high school also could take into consideration late for classes too,
Correct, yes, but.
which is a difference.
That's
from
a
the other two
different piece of
schools.
this. And that's a teacher
Right.
responsibility is to manage that student. And if it
So there
becomes
are
really
some-
chronic and they can't assign detentions or some other consequences
Right.
for that, then it comes to.
So there are some areas that are gonna differ.
Yeah. Yes.
Procedurally.
Yeah.
If that's a better word.
I'll put my questions together then for the next meeting. But so another one that jumped out at me was class rank.
Mhm.
I thought we didn't divulge a class rank, and
We
Till their
do,
Junior year?
we do. We initially were doing it at the start of senior year. Okay, we stepped it back down to the start of junior year. However, we're having conversations about class rank and many schools are doing away with it.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're in the initial stages of having that conversation. Which there are ways to do that without, one of the things with class rank is you get that competitive hunt for grades and challenge for grades and I want to be in the top 10 and I want to be number 1 or number 2. And it's a pretty destructive influence for students. At the same time, you sit here and you want kids to be motivated and you want them to be driven and you want them to strive. But I've, in my career, seen students who have done nothing but drive for a grade versus really strive to learn and strive to be part of other things and strive to be all of the various things that mean you're educated. But we still have class rank. We still have a valedictorian and a salutatorian. And there's some honor to that from the way we've done things in the past. There's certainly, they're deserving of some kind of recognition. But you can still do that without necessarily having those positions. You can do, the college recognition, cum laude, summa magna, and do that if you'd like to. And still recognize your excellent seniors who have achieved those highest goals. We could still have our senior academic excellence banquet. So.
So like I said, I'll have my questions for the next time, but so here it is right here. It's like missing 30 minutes or more of class time is considered an absence. For the first block class of the day, 3 instances of tardiness of less than 30 minutes each will count as an absence.
There you
So
go.
if they're 5 minutes late 3 times, that's an absence?
The way you're reading it, it sounds that way, and it doesn't sound right.
So if
Yeah.
I'm 2 minutes late 3 times, so the whole thing, like reading like all this absence and like tardiness, it's almost like we're trying to motivate the kids to get in there.
We are.
And I don't know, yeah, I can see that, but it's like,
I struggle with attendance as a function. I think it's important for kids to be attendant in school. I think, that's a punitive system here in some ways, what you're trying to do. Smack them upside of the head and tell them, get your butt to school, kind of thing. It's something we certainly can look at and try to figure out how to do it differently or how to do it so it's clear in terms of what our expectations are.
like I said, yours is easy. It's color coded. There's the key, yellow, green. And then each school after that is like different.
Would it help the board? I mean, right now you have 3 PDF versions of the handbooks. If we shared, the Google Docs, because these are all Google Docs, correct? Are they in Google?
I think they're Microsoft Word,
If we, okay,
which we can still share.
Yeah.
and
Then we
give
can
them
comment on
commenting.
them.
Because I'm thinking if we give you commenting privilege,
Mhm.
so that you can write the comment directly on it, it'll make it so much easier for us to respond to. Because otherwise, this is going to be quite an exercise of that handbook, this page, so.
I think you can comment on the PDF, can't you?
I think
I
you
wasn't able
only
to.
can if you
If
have,
you highlight.
Permission.
if you have the proper
Mine says
Acrobat.
Oh, right,
Google
Yeah.
Docs.
Okay, you're right.
It's software driven, so
I can't.
All right, okay. Okay,
Yeah.
so we'll write that down.
let us find a way to get you the document that you can then comment on. And that way, I think as you go through, you can just say, why is this? It'll also give the principals the ability, if we could do this in a Google, we can then respond back to you. We can actually have a comment dialogue about it. And if you see something that one handbook has that you think should be in the other, let us know that and we'll try to get that brought over. It'll be much more efficient. If you're going to read them all and have the comments, let's get it in one spot.
That's your summer homework, Brian. I'm out.
Not as much, like I said, I just noticed like one school like really emphasizes one area, another school emphasizes another area. And something like, conduct on a bus, that's what like jumped out at me. Like it should be the same in all 3 schools. What we
That's
expect
true.
from each student.
Yeah.
Principals, you have enough on your plate to get them on.
I think so.
Get back to work.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
So Corey's not here right now. We need a vote of who we our next meeting on.
I think he would like it, and I'm going to do my best to try to answer questions on it. So basically, the year-end encumbrances list that you have, I believe is the same as what we had last time. I don't think he made any tweaks or adjustments to it. And so you can see what we're proposing to do with year-end encumbrances. So we've got $197,593 that we've identified, and we put on hold an additional $40,177. And I'd be happy to take any questions on items here.
We've got them like several times, so. Does anyone have any questions?
Did you decide that he doesn't want a plastic shed? Is that what I take from this?
So after
Make a
speaking,
suggestion, Brian, and it looks like he's saying that Reed's Ferry will be more secure and higher quality than plastic. So I didn't know if that was what he was talking about.
When you cost it out, it's about $1,000 cost difference between the plastic shed and then the stick-built wooden shed.
Yeah.
And so the sense was to get the more sturdy, durable shed for $1,000 would make the best sense in terms of long lasting.
So make a motion to approve the encumbrances for year end. Would it be year end or would it be?
Yeah.
Year end 2019, 2018.
I feel like this is a different list.
What is different?
I don't know. I feel like, is it a shorter list?
No, I think he had it last time. There was a different.
No, I think it's the exact same thing.
No, it's the same list, but I think he had a list of what you had narrowed it down to above it. So it looked the same. And then this one was below that one.
Oh, okay.
But I think the one above it was bigger. You had some extra things and then you narrowed it down.
It's the same one.
It's the same one.
It is? Okay.
I remember
Look
that
at it
dollar.
right now.
I just think there were, I think there were
Right.
two on the
It's a
screen.
smaller font.
It's smaller on my screen. I can't even read it. So
Oh, there you go. Perfect.
there you go.
So I'll second a motion of encumbering $197,000, $197,593 for the 2018-19 school year.
Second?
You made the motion, I second.
Oh, you second? Okay. I'm a step
Further
behind.
discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained.
Do you have the audit letter?
Yes.
So the next topic on here is the audit engagement letter. And so we have been using Plodzik and Sanderson as our auditor for a number of years. And we've negotiated with them because we want to make sure that we're getting the best possible price we can. And they've come in with a proposal to continue on as the auditor for 3 more years. And are proposing a charge to us of $14,425 annually. Now that's an estimate based on the actual number of hours they spent. So if they were to uncover something that took additional time, it could end up being more because they'll bill for the actual service provided. But that is their estimate and what they believe they can do a good audit for. And Corey's done a cost analysis backward. And so starting in fiscal year 09, we've had an average of $16,622 as the audit cost. So over the last 5 years, it's been slightly less. So it was more a while ago. It's come down a little bit. And then we're projecting going forward that it would be at $14,425. So that is the audit proposal. I would welcome anybody from the board who wants to examine this to do so. And I reached out personally to Mike Campo, who is he's the partner with Plodzik and Sanderson, who is assigned to do our auditing for the next 3 years. I had a conversation with him and I said, look, as a first year superintendent of a $20 million organization, I want to talk to you because I need to know that you are helping us watch all of this. So I feel very comfortable with Mike's responses to my inquiries about what they're going to do to make sure that we're being responsible with the taxpayer money. So here it is, but I would encourage the board to take a peek, and basically it asks for a management signature, which Corey's already provided, and a governance signature, which would come from the board when the board is comfortable and ready to do that. I'll hand it to Brian.
That's it.
Thank you.
And if we have that tonight, great. If it takes another meeting, that's fine, because I want you to be comfortable with what we're doing. This is a big deal.
I think, didn't Corey, when he was talking about this last year, he said basically that he's familiar with them and he knows their process and how they like things. So he was actually able to cut down the time that they were able to spend. So that's probably where some of the savings is coming from.
Yep. And I think another piece is that as the auditors find things that they ask us to tweak and we adjust, then it makes it easier, because as our practice just gets better and more aligned with general accounting procedures, then the better off we are.
Is there any risk of, I don't know, bias by always staying with the same audit company? Or is that, I mean, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. That's a really good question. That's one of the conversations I had with Mike.
Yeah.
I said, you know,
we keep going
I
back
called
to
it comfort because I said, you know, I was always taught, you know, you change your accountant
Right.
every so many years, right?
Yep.
Every 7 years or so. So I
Right.
said, is it necessary or what are the factors they put in place? And he assured me that, first of all, they change their managing partner every 3 years. So it's not like Mike has been doing it for the last 10 years with us, right? So he's now coming in with fresh eyes. And the auditing team that they bring in also has that independence because they're then assembled to come and do this. And it's not the same team of 3 who go everywhere,
Okay.
but they mix them all up. So all those things allow them to ensure best practices being brought to bear on our audit.
And it's fresh eyes
that-
every year.
that fresh eyes, and it's not that comfort level of I'm going back to Litchfield for the 10th time.
Yeah.
That doesn't happen.
Okay.
Did he sign it?
No.
I'm comfortable with it. Make a motion or do you want to wait?
I'm okay with it too.
You need to sign it if you're okay with it.
What's the name of the company?
Quadzik and
Quadzik
Sanderson.
and Sanderson.
So I make a motion to, what would be just hire Podrick and Sanderson for the next 3 years, or sign a contract for the next 3 years. Next 3.
Second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? Abstain.
Thank you for that. They are, they'll be in July, I think, to start the process. So,
Well, they usually, it's the beginning of July, they do a pre-audit. They get a lot of stuff, a lot of things from us. And that actually saves a lot of time at the end of July. A lot of time.
so next is the dining services report. Lauren has given you the report format that you've become accustomed to. You can see that if we look back to last year, we served 65,386 reimbursable meals. This year, we have served 81,370. So
It's amazing.
it's an increase of 17,000 with the month of June to go. So we're in pretty good shape. And in the month of, did I just freeze? Why is that not moving? Excuse me. In the month of May, we were up 88 additional meals per day. So again, it really does show that the food service has been very responsive to what students are looking for relative to meals.
Did she get anywhere with that $6,000 or is it too soon for an update?
Yeah, so no, so we have begun the internal process of tuning our practice. And in fact, our principals meeting tomorrow, we're going to be talking about how we work better with the schools and especially the counseling and administrative team who know the students and families the best to make sure that we're providing assistance where it's needed, having an understanding of things. We're trying to, there's a delicate balancing act of confidentiality that we're trying to walk. But on the flip side, the schools know stuff because they are interacting with the families pretty frequently. So we're zeroing in on it.
I don't want to sound mean, but the more I thought about that one, it kind of burnt me for the last week that if you've got 7,000 taxpayers in this town, and if somebody can't afford it, there's opportunities out there to pay for it. But if you're not taking advantage of it, you're costing all of us money at the same time. I think we have to figure out a way to get them to fill out the paperwork if that's the need to get the reimbursement.
Well, it's self-funded, so, I mean,
No, I understand that, but it's just
Yeah.
if a
Right.
parent can't afford it, we're gonna cover it. It's just there are ways for us to get reimbursed for some of that coverage.
It's a pride thing for some people.
I know, but there's
Pride. Yeah.
but it
But it's
is, it's a
also
weight on the
unfair.
district, it's not fair to the
It's
district.
not
Some,
fair.
it's not all of them. Maybe.
Right.
Yeah, some, but it's just not fair also to the taxpayers that are
Right.
having to cover it because
Yeah,
It can absolutely be done discreetly, so it really shouldn't be a pride thing, you know.
is that something like I don't know the legality of it in a case where we can fill out most of the paperwork if need be. So when we send it home, it's mainly filled out. They just have to put the personal information in there.
So for example, I had quite a conversation with Principal Thompson, and so here you have a family, you're trying to make sure that there is a pride component and you want to be respectful of that. But they don't know Lauren from any other
Right.
telemarketer who's called them,
Right.
right? So,
Yeah.
you know, one more person calling. And so if the school identified that, okay, the nurse has a great relationship with this family, so then she can say, you know, I'd be willing to sit down with you. In fact, I understand you have a great relationship with the nurse at GMS. Would you be comfortable if I invited her to join us, right?
That's great.
So now when they come in to sit down, you got a familiar face sitting there. And, you know, it's interesting because as we talk it through, it's like, oh, we didn't know we could do that. We thought there was a confidentiality. Well, if you offer to the family, would you be comfortable if? And the family is comfortable doing that, then that becomes a resource as opposed to it's really not a breach, you know? So it's all in how we approach it.
Because it's not like it's a ticket like it was in the 80s. They all have a card and a code. There's no shame associated
Right.
to it. Do you know what I mean?
I'm
Like,
assuming it's right on their student ID, right?
it is. They wouldn't even,
Same.
they don't want their people don't want their kids to stand
No, of
out.
course
for-
not.
But,
Yeah.
but you make a good point because
Mhm.
when we were in school,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
it was
Got
a
a
blue
yellow
ticket
ticket.
kid,
Yeah.
or a
right?
blue ticket.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's no longer the case. I mean, it literally comes up on the screen. When I buy a meal in any of our schools, the same interface is seen by the cashier as a student who's on free and reduced lunch. So there is absolutely no way that anybody can tell one way or the other
Exactly.
what that source is. So, but we have to educate the parents of that
Right.
because again, they have the stigma of the old
Mhm.
practices and
Right.
we have to let them know that's not the case. So. The next thing is the enrollment report, and you know, our enrollments have been pretty steady all year. I will just comment as a high school principal. I love seeing that, you know, the high school I think has been the most stable. We opened with 439 and we're closing with 439. You know, we went down one, up a couple, but by and large, it stayed really flat. But I don't know if the board has any questions or observations off
I saw we got 3 more kindergartners registered, so that's encouraging.
It was my
for
post.
next year.
I know.
It was my post. I put a reminder out for parents, and there
Yeah.
are people you would think that didn't register. And I know my neighborhood, we just sold 2 houses, 2 new people moving in.
Yeah.
I know one has a 4-year-old.
Market's picking up again.
That's what we need to solve through the student.
Oh, good. I've been seeing a lot of parents posting, we're moving to Litchfield this summer. How are the schools? So, you know, if you come across one of those threads and I'm not there, just remind them to register their students as soon as possible. Most of the forms can be found online, and then
I did
Stuff
notice
at
the
the schools.
kindergarten form that was online. I think Andrew Cutter put it out there. There is no mention of a half-day option. It just says full-day kindergarten on it. And I-
It's full day kindergarten.
But you can still do a half-day option.
Hmm.
There's no place to check a box. They just have to tell people. I'm just throwing that out there. Because we'll have a lot more half-day kids. We had none this year. I know of at least 4 for next year.
I think
We had a few that started.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, we started out with 1 or 2.
All right. So that'll bring us to unfinished business again, the animals. Second read of IMG, animals in schools.
Is this the horses one? Mini horses?
No, so IMG is,
Another one.
this is the new policy,
Okay.
right? And so this would allow, if a class were to have a classroom pet, or if a person came to a ball game and brought a pet with them, or if we got to the point of having a therapy animal, all of that would be covered by this. So it is not service animals. It's all the other animals that you would have.
So a comfort or therapy animal is not a service animal.
Correct.
Well, that's a little tricky.
So a service animal is trained to do a specific task. So a seeing eye dog
Right.
that assists a visually impaired
For a,
person,
for a specific person.
that is a service
I
animal.
see. Okay.
Animal could be your little bunny.
He's awesome.
Carl could come to school
Yeah. As long as he's leashed.
I have to buy him a new harness.
and has a diaper.
Yes.
Oh, that would be interesting.
Yeah.
I don't think he'd like that.
It's called a cage.
You're looking for a motion.
Sure. There's one.
I'll make a motion to approve the animals in schools policy, second reading.
I'll second.
Further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained. Which passes 500.
And so the second policy is IMGA. This is a rewrite, a complete rewrite, really, of our existing IMGA. We brought this in alignment with the School Board Association recommended policy. And this is specific to service animals and the tasks that they're performing in schools.
Make a motion to approve is this a second reading?
It is.
The second reading of policy IMGA. Sorry, I lost it. I closed that window and I didn't mean to.
You have a second?
A second.
So I have a question, or just curious, because you bring up the horses and reading it. Why is miniature horses singled out? Like, how come a cat can't be in there?
Because I don't know why a cat can't be in there. It doesn't, traditionally,
Cats can't be trained to do like one thing.
cats can be, but I don't
Chickens
know.
can be. It's like,
Well, chickens are
Right,
more
why not
like
just say
therapy
all
animals.
service animals? Why does miniature horses get their own?
It's
paragraph?
whatever the law prescribes as a service animal. And in the law, it does mention dogs.
Mhm.
And it does mention
how many miniature
miniature
horses do you
horses.
think are registered with the state as service animals?
I'm gonna get one.
Two.
Just gonna say-
3 soon.
I was curious if anyone knew why.
I know they use horseback riding as therapy for a lot of kids, but
That's a therapy.
that's
That's
different.
not-
That's,
but I
no.
can't see them being a.
You can train a
service animal.
miniature horse. Now they have to be trained from, my daughter was telling me this, okay? They have to be trained from
They're
like when they're 6 months old and up, same with puppies. They are literally trained to be with a person. The person that's training them has to act like they're blind or deaf to train these animals. And they do the tasks that they're taught to do, like alerting them to a door or a phone, if they're deaf, or a blind person, where the steps are or something like that.
Can they be outdoor potty trained? You crate train them?
No, they're trained to be housebroken.
Wow.
Yeah.
Who knew? Learn something every
Then they
day.
have to be certified.
I had the same question, to be honest, but it was in the model policy, so.
Still,
All
I'd
right.
still like to know.
It'd be an interesting
We
thing
have
to
a
find
motion and a
out.
second. Further conversation? Hearing none, everyone in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstained, 500. Well, that'll bring us to the manifest.
It's signed over here.
Is it? Okay.
Public input, there is no public. Community forum, so that'll bring us into non-public. RSA 91-A:311, dismissal, promotion, or compensation of any public employee with disciplining of such employee or the investigation of any charges against him unless the employee affected, one, has a right to a meeting, two, a request that the meeting be open, in which case the request shall be granted. B, the hiring of any person as public employee. C, matters which if discussed in public would likely affect adversely the reputation of the person other than the member of the body or agency itself, unless such person requests an open meeting.
Yes.
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 Yes. Or non-public.